He did it! He did it! Flutie did it! I want to go higher! Bat it up! Oh, God! Stokely! Down the side!
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Extra Point Podcast. I'm Justin. I'm here with Thomas. You can see him grinning over here on the side.
Giggling. You did the YouTube intro. You're like,
what's going on, guys? Yeah. It's weird because I'm doing this without music now, so I don't have the same, like, I got to generate my own energy.
You don't have the Chris Collinsworth.
I don't have a slide. You can have a little bit of a slide. Anyway, episode 2, the Extra Point Podcast, where we have, I was going to point, but it doesn't really work. We have cameras. And you can see our faces. And we're talking sports today. Can you tell why I'm in such a good mood, Thomas? Can you wager a guess?
Perhaps the weather is nice. Could it be that maybe you had a good breakfast?
No.
Oh, it's because basketball is back.
Basketball! Yeah, we got basketball today. I was in such a good mood this week because I didn't know basketball was coming back this week. I didn't even know there were scrimmages until literally the day the scrimmages were happening.
Way to keep up with it. Nice.
I know. I thought it was like, okay, I think at the end of the last show, I was like, are we having basketball? Am I going to be able to watch basketball for the next show? It's like, no, it starts July 30th, so no, there's not going to be any basketball. But then I was on Twitter one day. I saw like a shot of like Kawhi Leonard, and I think they were against the Magic or something like that. And they were on the new court, the arena or whatever they call it. And I was like, wait, is there basketball right now? And then I went on Twitter and investigated more, and there was. And then so I've spent the last, like, I think it started on Tuesday or Wednesday. Spent the last 4 or 5 days watching basketball.
Watching hoops, bro.
So yeah, we're gonna have some takes. At least I'll have some takes. I don't know what kind of takes you have.
Some takes.
I watched about every scrimmage, and I this week was weird for me. I was falling asleep at like 7, 8 o'clock, and so the games that would happen like 7:30, I would just miss them, and so I'd go back and I'd watch highlights and stuff, try to catch up. So I didn't get to watch every scrimmage, but I watched a lot of them. But anyway, before we get into talking about basketball and talking about, which of course we're going to do our redraft for 2011. This is part 2. Let me plug some shit. Okay.
Plug that shit.
So we have Twitter. I was kind of live tweeting, sort of. I mean, not really, but I was tweeting some things about basketball being back. Go follow us at Extra Point Media on Twitter. We have an email that you can message to, and we'll like answer stuff. It's xtrapointcontact@gmail.com, and we're building a website right now. I'm building a website right now. Thomas is gonna when it's done, he'll give me some opinions, and then maybe we'll change it. If
Justin
you're watching
does all
this,
the work here.
if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you guys comment, like, subscribe, that kind of stuff. Helps the videos out. If you're on Apple Podcasts, because now we're back on Apple Podcasts, which we had a lot of success with before. So now we're back. If you guys are listening on there or Spotify or whatever, however they do their kind of liking and commenting rating system, just interact with that because that helps the show. And retweet our shit on Twitter and stuff. That helps too. Okay.
Please.
Let's talk about some basketball. As I
Awesome
said,
hoops.
I was watching pretty much from when the game started. So like the best day was, I think it was yesterday. The game started at like 11. And I just literally laid in bed and watched basketball from like 11 till whatever time.
That's how I watch football, so that's fine.
Yeah, when football comes back, it'll be the same thing. But oh my God, I've just been sports. Sports are back. We have sports, and maybe making a sports show during the pandemic doesn't sound so crazy now.
Yeah,
because
we have some stuff going on.
We have something to talk about. So I want to just briefly touch on some of the teams I watched. What games did you pay attention to that you saw?
I watched the Lakers and Magic. That was yesterday, actually. I watched the Bucks and the Spurs, and I watched whoever the Sixers played. Was that the Grizzlies?
The Sixers and the Grizzlies, yes.
Yeah, I watched those. Those are the 3 that I watched.
So after my analysis, because obviously I'm a Kings fan. This is a De'Aaron Fox jersey. I watched some of the shitty teams in the West. Not the shitty teams, but the teams that are not in the playoffs at this point and are trying to get into
beneath me.
the teams that are trying to get in the playoffs, like the Kings. I've made the realization none of those teams are getting in the playoffs. Because I think the Grizzlies are pretty damn good. I think Ja Morant's the real deal.
Yes,
Jonas
I agree.
Valanciunas. How do you say? Is that how you say his name? Did I say
Jonas Valanciunas.
Oh, okay. Well, you
Yeah, it might not.
You put a little flair on that. Oh.
So hold on, because Charles Barkley can't pronounce his name, so I don't know if he said Valanciunas or shit.
I said Valanciunas, but that's probably
I
not
don't.
right.
I don't think that's correct.
It's probably not. But
yeah.
you know who we're talking about. Big boy on the Grizzlies.
Yes. We can't say non-American names here on the show. So.
Yeah, which is sad. But they look like the real deal. I think what's interesting about Valanciunas is he can almost play the Pau Gasol role on that team, where he's kind of a good shooter, which surprised me. I did not, because I didn't know a bunch about Jonas Valanciunas.
Yeah.
How do you say it? I'm not good. Jonas, our boy Jonas.
Jonas.
He's surprisingly a good shooter. He's got decent moves for a big man, post moves.
Mm-hmm. He was good on the Raptors when he was on the Raptors.
Yeah, and so I think he'll be solid. Him and Ja Morant, I think they're going to lock up that 8 spot, and I don't think any of the teams. Here's my not hot take that I'm going to call a hot take, is that the Pelicans, who everyone's hyping up, like, they're going to get in, they're not going to have a shot. I don't think any of these teams have a shot, even when Zion comes back. I know they don't have Zion right now. I look at that team, and I'm not blown away yet. I think that team still needs to grow. Lonzo Ball is a solid passer and a solid defender, but Brandon Ingram didn't play either, right? So he sat out. So I guess we'll have to wait and see when that whole squad comes back.
Yeah.
But from what I saw in the scrimmage, I'm like, they look rusty. They did win their game, their second scrimmage, but I think the Grizzlies have that on lock, and I don't see any team in the West coming for that A seed. What do you think?
I mean, that's probably right. As we're kind of going to go forward, like I said in the first episode, I'm like 90% football and 10% basketball. I do watch basketball. I don't always know what I'm looking at. Mm-hmm. So, but I agree with that. I think Ja Morant's going to probably pull them into the playoffs and see how that goes. The Pelicans' schedule, though, for when they keep going through and when the games actually start to matter, is kind of pretty easy, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah, they have the easiest schedule.
Yeah, so
they play they play the Kings twice in a row.
Yeah, so if anything is going to help them out, it's going to be that for sure.
That's our biggest games. If we want to get a chance to play into the 9th seed and have a chance to do that play-in game against the 8th seed against the Grizzlies, we'd have to win those 2 games against the Pelicans probably, and then we'd have to win one against like a really good team like the Lakers or someone like that, and we'd have to beat the easy teams. We'd have to beat the easy teams. We'd have to beat the Spurs. We'd have to beat the Suns. I think we play the Suns. So I don't see the Kings making it, and I really don't see any team. But okay. And then for the East, we don't even need to talk about the AC in the East. That one's the Wizards are not gonna. No. The Wizards aren't gonna make a play for it, I don't think. Okay, so we each came up with who we think is gonna win, just based off what we saw in the scrimmage and what we saw last season. Who we think is gonna win the championship in each or not the championship. Who's gonna win each conference, get into the championship game. Like our solid picks, who we'd bet on if someone asked us, and then also a dark horse candidate for each conference, because I have somewhat of a hot take, but it's not really a hot take for both conferences, I think. So, okay, do you want to let's just reveal them at the same time, kind of like, okay, who's going to win the West?
Sure.
All right, who do you think is going to win the West?
I think the obvious answer is the LA Lakers.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's too easy. I mean, someone might say the Clippers, and like, sure, but you got to bet on LeBron James. Yeah,
I think so too, and Anthony Davis. I'm gonna once our website gets up and running, the first article I'm gonna write for that website is a weird metric I've used now to power rank the teams as to who's gonna win. I've thought of this weird formula just from what I've realized now about the past winners of the finals. And big chunk of it is how good is your star, and then how good is your second star, or how good is your second player, and then that gets weighted into there. So obviously, I wouldn't put LeBron as the best player in this. I'd put him as the second best behind Giannis. I think the difference is that no team, and so I guess I'll spoil this now, I think the Bucks are going to win the East.
Yeah, me too.
So I think no team, except maybe the Lakers, have someone who can match up against Giannis on defense. I don't think there's any player who can quite match up against what he's doing. He's too tall, too athletic. Maybe Anthony Davis could shut him down. That'd be the only.
I mean, that's a fair take, honestly.
And so I'd say Giannis is probably the best player here, but I don't think the Bucks have the best second guy in Chris Middleton. That would be my other take. So they kind of go down the list.
Yeah, fair. Chris Middleton's good, though.
Yeah, I think the Lakers then have the best second guy in Anthony Davis. So
Anthony Davis, yeah. So I see your logic there.
And you agreed with the Bucks.
Correct.
Okay, they have the best defense, I think, in the league. I don't know if that's statistically true, but just watching them, they look to be the best defense in the league.
Okay.
And when I got to watch firsthand yesterday them dicking the Kings. We're recording this on Sunday for context. I got to watch them dick the Kings, and at one point they ran this zone scheme where they had Giannis just sit on the perimeter, and literally no one could shoot because that boy is so tall.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
just literally can't shoot over him. Yeah.
And so that I was like, wow, this is going to be interesting.
Maybe Joel Embiid can match up with him. Now that I think about it,
I gotta see kind of. Joel Embiid in the playoffs is kind of. What are you gonna get? That's
true. But if you look at like just physical everything, because Joel Embiid can guard on the perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
I think Anthony Davis is a much better matchup, but I think maybe Embiid can do it. But I don't know.
Okay, so let's talk about our dark horse teams because I think I have some hot takes.
Okay. You can go ahead and start if you want to.
All right, I'll start it off with the West, and this is probably let's start off with the East because I think my West take is hotter than my East take.
Really? Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
So in the East, I think my dark horse team to win it, and this is a hot take. I think both of them are hot takes. My dark horse team to win it is Miami.
Okay. I really don't think that's that big of a hot take, to be honest with you.
Miami?
Yeah, I don't think that's that big of a hot take.
Okay, well, they are the 4th seed,
mm-hmm.
so that's fair. Jimmy Butler is a fantastic defender. He can get buckets. He's a good star that they have. But then it's the team around them that I think is so strong. And Bam Adebayo is a stud at center.
Yes.
He's like a dark horse, most improved probably.
Mm-hmm.
And not MVP, but I know there's people who could argue that, but I can't argue that.
Yeah.
And, they have good shooters around them too. And Duncan Robinson is a great shooter.
Yes, one of my friends sucks off Duncan Robinson. So
he's pretty good.
He's good, but
he's got a cool personality too. I watched a podcast with him the other day.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. The Heat are just like, if you watch like interviews and stuff, if it's like group interviews, just them talking to each other is hilarious. Mm-hmm. Most of that's Jimmy Butler because Jimmy Butler's hilarious, but it's just. And
then
funny.
Tyler Hero is also another guy who looks good. So it might not be their year this year, but I think they're going to surprise people and maybe get in the championship game.
Mm-hmm.
Depending how it falls, I don't know if they play the Bucks early, then
probably
screwed. But I think they don't. Maybe Bam Adebayo can match up on Giannis. I don't know.
The thing is, like, even when you say like match up on Giannis, I mean, you're not really matching up on Giannis because
right.
I mean, you're not going to be able to stop him really just because of just how he is.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just kind of doing your best.
Yeah, if you can somehow, I gotta look more into their matchup because he's not a good shooter.
Yeah.
So
he's not.
If you can really lock up the inside, the paint, then
mm-hmm.
Maybe you can slow him down. But okay, so who's your dark horse in the East?
My dark horse in the East is, I mean, really, like I said, I was really kind of thinking that the Heat wasn't such a hot take, but I guess I'll say someone different. I really think about, like, you can't really call the Celtics a dark horse.
I'm about to say, I think there's two teams that you can't call a dark horse, and that's why I ended up on the Heat. Because I don't think you can call the 76ers a dark horse, and I don't think you can call the Celtics a dark horse.
So, I'll just say the Heat again. Like, that's a good take. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't really... Because, like you said, you can't call it... I was going to say the Celtics, and I'm like, that's not really... Because they're still a premier team, so it's not like they'd be... Like, if they won, you wouldn't be like, wow. You'd be like, yeah. It's Celtics.
So, okay, then I'll just bring up the Magic and the Raptors.
Okay.
I'm
just kind of on both.
Yeah, the Raptors I watched against the Rockets. Yes.
I think so, yes.
And they're solid defensively.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously... they still have a lot of the same weapons. I just don't think they have the star. Like, they need a star, and I don't think they have one right now.
Now, Nick Nurse is a really good coach, so I mean, if he he can definitely get them there for sure. But NBA is a star power league, so.
And then the Magic. I think they benefit. They looked like one of the least rusty teams coming back. And I think that's making them look. I think it's making them look better than they are.
Yes.
Because they're playing against these rusty teams. I think when they get into the actual, everyone's gone through, however many games at that point, 12 games or something like that. By the time you get to the playoffs, they'll probably lose in the first round. I don't know who they're going to play, but they look good right now, but I don't know if that'll hold up. All right, let's move to the West. This could be a hot take, I guess, because this team that I have as my dark horse is the 7th seed currently, and that is the Dallas Mavericks. And here's the hot take in it. I would say that Luka Doncic right now, even at such a young age, his second year, is in the top 5 players in the playoffs right now. And so I thought about this in my head, and I was like, do I really agree with that? Let me name some players. All right, so let's go. Giannis 1, LeBron 2.
Sure.
Okay. Kawhi.
Okay.
Anthony Davis.
You're putting Luka over like James Harden?
Okay, I'm gonna go 6. He's the 6 because James Harden's ahead of him. I would say Luka Doncic is a taller, chubbier James Harden.
Taller, chubbier James Harden.
They play very similar. I'd say Luka Doncic plays better defense though.
I mean, yeah, but I think James Harden's offense is just that much better.
But I think Luka's getting there. Like, on some of those threes are fantastic. His ability to pass the ball is fantastic. I think his ability to pass the ball is on par with James Harden's ability to pass the ball.
I think Luka will get there. I think he'll be one of the top players in the league, period, after a few years and after some people retire. But, I mean, that's not that big of a hot take. He's clearly very, very good.
They play very similar. Like, one of Luka's main weapons, and I was making highlight reels all over the internet, is that step back 3.
Yeah,
it's deadly from Luka. And the same thing with James. I just think because of Luka's size, he's just more positioned to be a better defender. Yeah, and surprisingly athletic for looking like a chubby dude.
Looking like a chubby dude.
Like,
is he sneaky athletic?
He's sneaky athletic for being chubby.
Because he's white.
Well, yeah, maybe. And he's European. I think the big thing is that he's European.
Oh, they got too many. What is he from? Is he from Latvia? Is that where he's from?
He's from, I thought he was Slovenia or something.
I'm looking it up.
He's from the same place that all the players come from.
He's from where Kristaps is from, I think. Yeah, so you were right. Slovenia,
right? Yeah. So
what do they eat in Slovenia?
I don't know. Some ganoush? I don't know.
Ganoush? What's ganoush?
I don't know. But it was funny since we're talking about white players, European players. I was trying to... I've been trying to get my mom into basketball because she's a big football fan. I was trying to get my mom to watch basketball because, like, it's nice to have someone to talk to about sports, and I can always do that with my mom about football. But basketball, she's not been into, and I thought it would never happen. Then we watched the Michael Jordan documentary.
And she was, like, all about it.
And she was like, oh, I love Michael Jordan. And she was so into it, and she wanted to... We watched, like, the whole thing in, like, 2 nights. But she's still like, I don't want to watch basketball. And she was like, the only reason I got into football so much, because she knows a lot about football, is like because I like Tom Brady a lot. So I was like, well, who can be her Tom Brady equivalent?
So basically, someone she thinks is handsome.
But the problem came. I was like, okay, well, who are the most handsome players? And they don't necessarily have to be white guys, but I thought I was trying to get a guy that kind of looked like Tom Brady. And so I was going through, and I was like, man, all the good white guys in the league are European, and she's just not into it.
She's not into the Euro.
The closest I got, and I think this is funny, the closest I got was Kevin Love.
Kevin Love. Hey. Hey.
Showed her some pictures with him with puppies and shit. She was like, he's okay, but it was like hard because I didn't want to tell her, like, he's not that good anymore, but he was good.
He'd be better on a team.
He needs to go to a good team because, like, he could probably win another chip.
But the cat, like, when I stopped, like, truly, like, following basketball is when we re-signed Kevin Love, and that's not a dig on Kevin Love at all, but it's because LeBron James left and we thought we could compete for 6 games, and then we're like, oh shit, no, we can't, and we.
Okay, where was I? I gave you my Mavericks take.
Dark horse, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, and the Mavericks just have, Kristaps, and they got good guys around. They got good defensive players. I think they could make a deep run. I don't know if they'd win the whole thing, and I don't know if they'd beat the Lakers over the Clippers when Clippers got into full form. But what's your dark horse? What'd you look up?
Sorry. So I looked up Slovenian food, and the first image result looks to be like a cake, but there's an egg, and like a full egg in the middle of the cake.
Is it ganoush? I don't know.
Is it ganoush? I don't know. What is ganoush?
I think it's good. I think it's a G.
Is it a G? Ganoush. Oh yeah, ganoush. Let's see what ganoush is.
Is it Slovenian?
It's a character in World of Warcraft. Hold on. What is
I thought you had a food item in front of you.
What is ganoush food? It just looks like, what do you dip chips in? Hummus. It looks like hummus.
Oh, I like hummus.
It's it's like from the Middle East where ganoush is from.
Okay,
So yeah, hummus. It says fucking hummus. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So who's your dark horse team in the West?
I want to say the Rockets, but it's kind of the same situation as the Celtics, where they're not like really a dark horse team, but they also kind of are.
Oh, I'd say the Rockets are a dark horse team
because the Rockets really kind of get.
The Rockets don't have anyone over 6'8" on their team.
I mean, that's true, but I mean,
that's why
they also just kind of get disrespected a little bit from. This might be because I live in Texas, so maybe I feel this way, and I don't really even care about the Rockets that much. Well, go ahead. What's your opinion?
I just think the Rockets are not good anymore.
What do you mean?
They've missed because now I think they're getting desperate. They're like,
I don't think so.
You know what? We're not winning. No more centers.
No more centers. I just think I don't know. I don't have an explanation for that because I don't know basketball very much.
I think Mike D'Antoni's probably out after this year.
There's a lot of stuff going on with the Rockets. So I feel like behind the scenes that we don't know.
I don't know if this might be it for them.
Their owner kind of seems like a scuzzball, which is kind of prevalent in teams that I enjoy watching. But I don't know because I feel like the Rockets just exactly you said I don't think they're good anymore. They still have James Harden. I think with James Harden you have a fighting chance at the very least. All Russell Westbrook needs to do is shoot like 20% for 3, and then they'll be fine.
I think their 2 stars are really good.
Yeah,
I think everything else in the scheme around him is not.
I just think their supporting cast, it's all going to rely, Russ has to play good for them to win. And, I mean, he should play good because he is good. But he has to play good for them to win. If he plays all right, they're probably not going to win. They're probably not going to get past the first round. Or the second round, excuse me. Probably not going to get past the second round. So
it's like the Rockets are a team that's like, as soon as they face against any team with a traditional big, I don't think they can win.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to be fair, they should have been in the finals 2 years ago?
I think they were at one point, in
the finals?
No, not in the finals, but in a position to win the thing. I just think that is now past. They've given up.
That's not past. I don't think they've given up. I think
I think it's the whole strategy with getting rid of your center.
I don't think you can say they've given up when they trade for one of the best point guards in the league.
Yeah, but then they traded Clint Capella mid-season. And we're like, you know what?
Clint was kind of ass.
Yeah, but now they don't have anyone on their team over 6'8". They got rid of any big guy they had. That's my take on the Rockets, and it's not a hot take. I don't think. I think that's most people's opinion. And that's why I guess if you want to say they're a dark horse, you're right in saying that James Harden and Russell Westbrook are 2 of the best players in the league. James Harden more so, obviously, but so yeah. They meet. That's most of the criteria that goes in my formula. Who's the best star, and then who's the second? How good is the second star?
Mm-hmm.
Now I think they just lack in the category of the team around them and the scheme around them. But I mean, maybe James Harden. Maybe he needed people to think he's ass. Not he's ass, but his team has no chance to win because he's always kind of been. The Rockets the last few years are they could win, and this year I don't think anyone's saying they could win.
Yeah, that's pretty correct, I would say. So yeah.
So I think there was a good chance. It could be that he needed people to doubt him to be good, and same with Russell Westbrook. Not that he hasn't been good.
Yeah.
But
It's
sometimes
just, yeah.
there's moments in the playoffs that you're like, man, if you would have shot well, you guys would have won.
If the refs would have called any fouls against the Warriors that one year, that would have been cool. But
I mean, there was that
anyway,
year they missed like 27 consecutive
that
threes.
was the year, but that was also because they didn't.
Well, 27 consecutive threes is
a lot of that was still because fucking whatever. NBA officiating is major ass. Sports officiating is major ass. I don't know how it's so bad across every sport possible. Anyway.
All right. Well, let's finish this topic. Let's wrap up this topic about the NBA restart. Even though there is one more NBA thing I want to talk about briefly that we can just touch on. Two more things. One of them was funny. One of them was kind of more analytic. Okay, so I'll just wrap this up by asking you your opinion on like how they're doing the broadcasts and stuff.
Okay. I think the Zoom call at either the top or the bottom of the screen or people's faces needs to go away. I don't like that. I want to watch. I just thought it looked weird.
Right.
They're doing their best with the digital crowd. It still looks weird, and I mean, it was always going to look weird.
Right.
So whatever. I understand that you have to try to give the home team some advantage. I guess.
The advantage they get is that their logo and name is on the big board.
Very minimal. Very
like
minimal.
they'll pipe in like not pipe in crowd noise per se. So I texted you at some point that they piped in crowd noise, and that wasn't technically true. More what it was.
They just do like chants and stuff.
Like the things you'd actually hear at a game when they'll turn it on, and then everyone in the crowd will go along with it. But it's the same kind of noise. Yeah, it's the defense, and so they'll play that for the guys who are technically home.
Yeah, no, that was always going to look weird, and it does look weird.
I thought it was fine.
Especially, I mean, it's fine. Like, it's not really that bad. The only negative thing is, like, that Zoom call needs to go away. I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
I don't like that at all.
But otherwise, I thought the presentation was good. I like the Black Lives Matter on the court. I think, if you tune into NBA TV, before the games, they're bringing guys on in Zoom calls. They're talking about, and I think they're doing a good job of highlighting, because I remember Kyrie's big thing was, you got a movement and we can't go play basketball. And I think they're doing it in the right way to not subtract from the movement.
Yeah, to not subtract from that. Yeah, I agree.
So I think it's about as good as it could have been. I think it's about as good as it could have been.
I agree.
So it looks
I
good.
still wish they would have. My dream was the hot mic on the floor so we can hear everything.
You can't do that. They have mics under the
court. I know, that's weird.
So you can hear the ball in their shoes.
I mean, that's a good idea, because, I mean, otherwise you probably wouldn't be able to hear it just for the setup. So, but yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it's as good as it's going to get. So.
Yeah, I think you couldn't have done it any better. I don't know what. Like, obviously, you wanted the hot mic on the floor, but they can't. You got to think, they can't do that.
Yeah. I mean, I know. That's just. Well, because when ESPN aired the Michael Jordan documentary, they had the censored version on ESPN and then the uncensored on ESPN2. I'd be like, give me that uncensored version on ESPN2.
I feel like they're like, we don't need to be splitting it up. Just
they
haven't heard the players cursing on the court ever, so why do we have to give it to them now?
I mean, like, as a business, absolutely, I get it, because whatever. But
all right, let's talk about our two pieces of NBA news. So let's do the less funny one first, because now I don't have much to say about it. I got like light takes on it that are not. Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah.
He signed with the Knicks to be their head coach.
R.I.P. RJ Barrett. Your knees were fun when they lasted.
And Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah.
Those guys are going to
hope
get.
you enjoyed your knees.
Yeah, they're going to be.
Taj Gibson can't escape the Thibodeau vortex. He can't escape it. He's like.
I don't know. Instant reaction is this is not going to be good. Right?
I mean,
it's a young player that already has problems, and Thibodeau's known for getting players to hate him and causing problems.
Yeah. I mean, Thibodeau is definitely, he's a good coach. I mean, most of his teams are very solid defensively. And I mean, they're usually just solid all around. And the injury stuff that I say, like, that's also more because Derrick Rose just didn't hold up a lot. But I mean, players.
It's hard to argue for him as a defensive coach. In the thing that people, Mitchell Robinson, he's got great size and he'll be a great defender and he can block. And then with Thibodeau, it's just going to be so much better. Well, it didn't happen for Karl Anthony Towns. So what makes you think it's going to happen for Mitchell Robinson?
Maybe Karl Anthony Towns is soft, I guess. I don't know.
I think he's going to quickly find guys he doesn't like, and those guys will not play. For example, a guy like Dennis Smith is not going to be playing.
Poor Dennis Smith.
But a guy like Frank Ntilikina.
Because Frank, how do you say his last name?
Ntilikina, I think.
Ntilikina? Like Ntilikina?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, I'll just say Frank.
Frank. Number 11 he's number 11, right? Number 11 for the New York Knicks. I think he's number 11.
But yeah, I mean,
he's a solid defender already. So
yeah, exactly, and that's kind of what he values. So, but yeah, I mean, RJ Barrett will probably be playing. Now, the Knicks do have a problem with not really young players, but I think that's because they've been perma-tank mode for years. So RJ Barrett hopefully will play more than I don't even know what he averaged, but he definitely could have played more last year. He'll probably play 30+ minutes a game, which, well, I mean, once they get rolling, probably at the start of the season they won't, but once they get rolling, he'll probably be playing 30+ minutes a game if Thibodeau likes him and sees him as a starter. Is it Thibodeau or Thib?
I think it's Thibodeau.
Thibodeau? Oh, I'll stop saying Thibodeau. I can't fucking say names. What's wrong with me? Tibbs, that's right. Okay, so if Thibodeau likes him, he'll play 30+ minutes a game. Mr. Robinson, maybe. He's kind of more of a situational player. He's still very good, but I don't know if he would fit be a player that plays 30+ minutes a game, but probably. But that's what you expect from a Thibodeau team. So we'll see. Yeah. They signed to a 5-year contract, which is odd.
But that doesn't mean shit. Really, you can just
they're still paying. They're still Fizdale was fired in year 2, so whatever.
I don't think that team's gonna be any better next year. Maybe they'll be slightly better. I don't think they'll make the playoffs or anything.
I think they'll be a little worse because I think they'll go through a lot of change.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Last piece of news. Lou Williams.
Lou Williams. You what?
Okay, so I was roasting the King's center, Rashawn Holmes, for having to go into 10-day quarantine because he wanted some chicken wings in order to DoorDash and walked outside of the bubble. Okay? But when you go, I have a family emergency, which he did, I guess. He went to a funeral. He did actually go to that funeral. It's just he decided to go to, what is that place called? I do not remember the name. I want to say it's Magic City. I think it's called Magic
the establishment?
City. Yeah, and it is a gentleman's club.
A gentleman's club.
Now, he claimed that he was just going there for dinner afterwards. But, you always got to question who's going to a strip club for a steak,
Yeah, I'm going to this bar so I can get a chef salad. Fuck off. You're not
So
you got caught. Just be yeah, my fault.
So he got the suspension. He's obviously going to be quarantined. He had to know that was coming. And it's
what are you doing?
It's so early too.
Yeah.
If you couldn't do it for, it's been what? They've been there for a month now, maybe.
Yeah.
Getting close to that. You're going to have to be there until October. I get you're horny, man, but
Disney World's not going to put a gentleman's club on the bubble campus, so you're going to have to go without for a little bit.
You got a computer, just get it out there. I'm sure they provide you with tissues. During the day, go golf or whatever to entertain yourself. Try to distract yourself from the raging libido that you have, and don't pull a Ben Roethlisberger.
Don't do that.
As simple as that.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not really going to affect anything because he's missing 2 games, and they are seeding games, but whatever.
They're making the playoffs either way, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're already locked in. But, you want your whole team together.
Oh, I mean, obviously someone's
and then let's hope he didn't get coronavirus while he was there.
That's true.
If he does have it, then that's even more of a problem.
Yeah, if he does, then this is even more stupid. So. Yeah,
so let's just hope he didn't.
He was wearing a mask in the pictures, at least.
Oh, wow. You got a mask, and there's booty right here?
Yeah, basically.
Guess that has a little mask, too.
Oh, my gosh.
All right, let's move on. That's all our NBA stuff. What was the other things we were going to talk about, the NFL stuff?
Well, you want to talk about Mike Tyson and
let's do
Roy
Mike
Jones?
Tyson first. Okay, yeah. I don't know a lot about boxing.
Okay.
But I know who Mike Tyson is, and I don't know who Roy Jones is.
Okay, you should. Roy Jones Jr. is probably the best. Was he middleweight or welterweight? Whatever weight class he was the man for a very, very long period of time. And then he got old, and he kept fighting when he was old, and now it's very sad to watch him fight. And he still does fight more than this. And sometimes he loses, and it's oh my gosh. Like I said, Roy Jones Jr. was a – hold on. God damn it, it's not going to tell me his fucking weight class. Was a middleweight. Obviously, Mike Tyson was a heavyweight. So already this stupid. I know they're both old, and I mean they're probably fighting at a catchweight, or they're just both heavyweight now because I'm sure Roy Jones has put on a little bit of weight because he's older. So he's 51. Mike Tyson is however old he is, around the same age, I'm sure. They have both said that this is an exhibition. It's like 8 rounds. Mike Tyson's 54. They're wearing 12-ounce gloves, which means heavier gloves, means a little less impact when it makes contact. Neither of them are going for knockouts. This is pure like, hey, you want to make some money, man?
But
Which is fine.
Mike Tyson, though.
I mean, yes.
You got to see what we're getting out of Mike Tyson. Here's my thought. I saw an interview with Mike Tyson where he's like in tears talking about, I haven't been I can't do a Mike Tyson. I'm sorry.
It's hard. You got to have like a specific list.
Okay, he's like, I haven't been working out, and he's crying during this whole thing. It's like barely coming out. But, I'm scared to do it because when I do it, I lose my, I lose my, I become an animal. And he's like crying, and he's like, I'm scared to go back there. And then now you see the videos of him just fucking old as shit, but just moving and just striking.
I mean, you don't lose that, especially when you're.
He probably would have lost if he didn't get in shape, but he got in shape.
I mean, he got really fat. Yes, he got really fat, but he got in shape. I mean, that all comes back. I mean,
I think your whole life and you're as gifted
as Tyson is.
There's something there that's a little funky.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and that's what makes him scary for me.
I mean, he was already kind of like that before, just because of how he grew up and everything, and also, I mean, you get punched in the head for your whole life, you're gonna have some issues. So, whatever.
Is this Roy Jones guy nearly as scary as Mike Tyson is currently?
Scary and no, not. I mean, he doesn't have like the he's not like a monster like Tyson was. He's just really, really fucking good. Roy Jones Jr. honestly, no. Roy Jones Jr. now.
Mike Tyson scares me. I listened to that interview and I was like, this dude sounds like there's a demon trapped inside of him, and if it breaks out, there's no saving the world. That's how he speaks.
I mean, I would much rather. I mean, if Roy Jones Jr., make no mistake, could kick yours and mine ass with one hand at the same time. Okay. So whatever.
That's fair. I'm not going to debate that.
But Roy Jones Jr. is not. He's a dude. He's not like Mike Tyson, where he's like, I'm gonna fuck you in the ass.
Better Mike Tyson than my Mike Tyson.
Well, because I can only say that, which is pathetic.
I'm gonna fuck you in the ass. Is the only Mike Tyson line you practice.
Well, that's how he would say that. That was actually a Key and Peele sketch, to be fair. So he might not have actually said that. But just shit like that. Like he's not on that level of Mike Tyson. Looney. Roy Jones Jr. is just a really, really good fighter. That's way, way, way past his prime. That's out of his weight class. This is going to be a sad fight. This is going to be a terrible fight. It's going to be 8 rounds of.
Is this going to be nearly as popular as the McGregor-Floyd fight?
No.
In terms of pay-per-view buzz?
No shot. No way.
I mean, I feel like people want to watch Mike Tyson fight.
Not even a tenth of the pay-per-view buys. No way. I mean, unless you're.
I'm gonna watch it.
I'll probably watch it too, but I'm gonna watch it legally. I'm not watching. I'm not fucking paying for it. No way. I mean, this fight, I'm predicting it'll be very, very, very bad. So
it'll be a bad fight. I mean, unless Mike Tyson's a beast. That's what people just want to watch. The only reason people are gonna watch is be like, Mike Tyson's still fucking crazy and a beast in there, because that's where I don't give a fuck about the other guy. You said he's been fighting.
He's been fighting. Well, but he used to be literally probably the best pound for pound fighter in the world in his prime. Mm-hmm. He is about like 15 years past his prime. Roy Jones Jr. just watching him fight now is like it's like I can't think of a MMA comparison like it's kind of before. But like Chuck Liddell when he was past his prime and he was just getting destroyed, it was like, dude, you gotta stop. Or like I can't think of a current example really. So someone who's way past their prime that you're like, you need to cool it, dude. Because you can start hearing it in his voice. Because he does commentary too, and he used to be like very sharp, very bald, but now it's like, I got the marble mouth, and it's like,
Okay, well, I think it'll be interesting. I'm gonna watch it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I just think it's gonna suck.
And then big NFL story, right? Well, we have 2 NFL stories, I guess. NFL and NFLPA came to agreement. Season's going on.
We're having football.
Yeah,
no preseason. No preseason sucks because people who would otherwise make a roster aren't going to.
Our XFL friends.
Yes. Adam Thielen came out in an interview and was like, I wouldn't be in the NFL if that season was how that season was.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that sucks for them. That's just kind of how it goes. The players didn't want preseason games, which I understand entirely. So, hopefully, and honestly, I would like to see preseason games not eliminated, but definitely cut down. Even though they are useful for roster formation, I think having 3 instead of 4, or maybe even just 2,
in general,
would be better.
So like after this year, you're saying?
Yeah, and just fucking don't have the Hall of Fame game. The Hall of Fame game is stupid. Nobody likes it. It's too early. The field sucks. Just don't have the Hall of Fame game. It's stupid. Nobody cares. People are like, "Woo, I love the NFL. I'm going to see the Hall of Fame game." It's like, nerds, go away. Like, you really want to see 4 stringers from Mount Union run into, like, no, talking shit to them, whatever.
Same thing happens every year to me. I go, "Oh, wow, we got a game. It's September or whatever. It's August. And I got a game, and it's the first one. I'm gonna watch it. And oh my god, this is awful."
I mean, it's just because it's just how it goes. It's a low level of play, which is, I mean, that's how you figure it out. But it's just like,
and I get bored after the first quarter. I'm like, the starters aren't even gonna play. It's like,
well, now I watch it over and over again because I'm an idiot. But I'll watch it the day after when I just have all the clips lined up and I can just keep going. Oh, this is a 1-yard run for no gain. Next.
You know what kind of sucks is now looking forward, because there's some rumblings about the XFL and maybe a potential return sometime soon, sometime next year. Not soon, but sometime in the future. And this would have been a great time to look at some guys. We're like, oh, he could be in the XFL. Because we're going to have to talk about the XFL when more stuff comes out about it, because, that's our bread and butter. I mean, that's what we made our name on. It's our
origins. We have our name. We're world famous.
So we can't leave that behind. We do have to talk about the XFL when it comes back on.
I'll talk about the XFL. That's fine. I will talk about the XFL happily.
Yeah.
It's just, it has to get purchased and it has to start again. Is the only hang up. So
there's slight interest, like Fox was saying, ESPN were saying stuff that they might they want to be involved if it does come back. Then they should buy it if they really want it to come back. But...
Well, I think it's hard because the owners of the league were the coaches. Right. So I think you have to. It's the way that league was set up. That was a cluster fuck. So
yeah.
I'm surprised it worked at all, to be honest with you. So,
but I feel like it could have kept going if the pandemic didn't hit. But okay, we're not doing a big XFL topic, I guess, right now, because there's not really much to talk about. Now we're just reminiscing. But okay, what was the other NFL story? Jamal Adams.
Yes.
Jamal Adams.
So
do you have the trade details right in front of you? Because I don't.
I'm going to get them immediately. One moment.
I know it was like 2 first rounders.
I know what it is. I don't know the years of the first round of the picks, but they got 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and Bradley McDougall, who's another safety, in exchange for Jamal Adams. This is between the Jets and the Seahawks. So the Jets absolutely, the Jets make this trade every time.
Yeah, that was an easy trade.
That was a very easy trade for the Jets to make. Jamal Adams doesn't want to be there. They get 2 firsts for safety.
I would say it's not the worst trade for the Seahawks either, though. I think it kind of worked out for both sides.
So the only problem, this move, acquiring Jamal Adams, the Seahawks are in the same division as the 49ers. To me, this is like all right, I don't want George Kittle to be George Kittle when he plays us, because that's what Jamal Adams will do. That's the role Cam Chancellor had in that defense, was the tight end eraser. I don't think Jamal Adams is quite on Cam Chancellor's level when it comes to that, but he's still very good at that. So that'll be what that's for. This is what that move was for. The only problem with that now is the Seahawks have no draft capital and won't have any cap if they need to re-sign Jamal Adams to sign a pass rusher or draft a pass rusher, because they don't have one. They have Bruce Irving, who is way past his prime. Clowney left.
Though there's potential Clowney could come back.
He could come back,
not off the table.
But if he wants a big deal, they don't have the cap to do that now.
That's true.
So it'd be a 1-year or a very short-term contract, and then they get a comp pick, like a third-round
contract. I believe this was a short-term move. I don't know if – I'm sure they'll really try hard to re-sign Jamal Adams for what they gave up. But, that team is right there. The Seahawks are right there. They already have a good defense.
They do not have good defense.
They have a fairly decent defense.
They have good players on the defense. It's just they have very little pass rush. And that's going to be tough. And, I mean, now that Quentin Dunbar is probably going to – that whole thing with DeAndre Baker is going to get more and more whatever. That does not look good for them on the defensive front, to be honest with you.
Yeah, okay, well, on their D-line, but I think their secondary And their linebacking core is still solid.
I mean, Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright are very more so Bobby Wagner.
But KJ Wright was really good last year because I was looking him
He's
up
fine.
when we were doing the redraft. This was his best year in his age 30
he did
season.
quite good.
He was
a lot of that's because their D-line is so bad that he has to do anymore.
But yeah, I don't know what they'll do to shore up the D-line. Don't they have a guy who's their D tackle? They have a D tackle.
Boone Ford.
Yeah, he's pretty
Boone
solid.
Ford. I mean, he's fine. He's more of a pass rusher. He's just not a run stopper. Which, I mean, obviously they're not like abysmal or anything, and they'll probably still win games because they're well coached, and Russ will take them as far as he can, which is usually pretty far.
And they needed a safety after their safeties kind of got, because that's so important to that Seattle scheme. Like it's the reason the Vikings. We have to always have good safeties. We have to have Harrison Smith and we have to have Anthony Harris because we run the Seattle scheme, and it is so reliant on those safeties.
It's just, even if Jamal Adams is the best safety in the league, which he arguably is, it's just not like a safety, no matter what your scheme is not going to make that big a difference in the win-loss column. Covering tight ends,
already winning games.
Important. Yeah,
like, did the team get worse from last year? Like, they lost to Davian Clowney. But have they
lost their biggest pass rush, yeah.
Yeah, but Clowney didn't come in until halfway through the season.
Still.
I think they could still win games. I think they'll still be back in the playoffs.
I mean, I'm not saying they're. I mean, if they go to the playoffs, it'll probably be as a wild card team. Because I just think the Niners are going to win in that division again. Maybe not.
And who did they draft? Did they draft any edge rushers?
No, I don't think they did. Let's look at their draft. No, Jordan Brooks can rush the passer. Shout out Texas Tech, wreck 'em, baby. But he'll probably be more used as a cover linebacker. He's probably the KJ Wright replacement whenever KJ Wright retires. And plus, the Seahawks usually draft so bad that picks are not as valuable to them anyways. I mean, Rashad Penny was very good in college, but like when they picked
Rep
Rashad
San
Penny,
Diego State, we don't have we don't have a hand sign.
You don't have a hand thing? And maybe that's just a Texas thing. But like just the Seahawks are so they drafted an edge rusher 2 years ago, like his name was LJ Collins, I think, was like a third rounder that they picked in the first round. And it was like, I don't know. They drafted so bad that honestly their first round picks are not as valuable to them as it is to another team. That's a win-win for the Jets. Let me see.
The Jets definitely won the trade, but I don't think the Seahawks. I don't think you can shit on them as much. I think they are in win-now mode. I think
you're right.
They're coming towards the end of
when
you're things are going to be great.
It's a short-term move. 100%. I agree with that. 100%. Now that you've said that. Oh my God, I hate these websites that make these a slideshow.
I know, and it's like 12 different pages, and then we're trying
just
to back
make it
out.
a list. Okay, here we go. A list.
We won't do that on our website.
Yeah, never.
It'll all be one page.
It'll all be one page. We might have banner ads. That's all. We will have no autoplay ads if we can control it.
And you can get rid of the banner ads by just turning on ad blocker. If we do have them. We're not going to have them now. It's not like we have advertisers.
That's true.
So I guess now's the best time to tune into our website whenever that goes live.
Okay, so they drafted Darrell Taylor and Alton Robinson out of Darrell Taylor's from Tennessee, Alton Robinson was from Syracuse. Alton Robinson was not very good. He had one good year and then he kind of fell off. Darrell Taylor is undersized and he'll probably play the same position that Clowney played, which is like a hybrid linebacker, defensive end, pass rushing role. But those are both developmental players. Probably not going to have much playing time. I don't know what their plan is. I don't know what they're doing. If the Seahawks did not have Russell Wilson, they would be the Cleveland Browns of like the past 10 years, where they're just like, it's just like bad rosters, bad players, bad teams.
Oh, that's a little extreme. I think there's a lot of good players on that team.
Who?
Bobby Wagner.
Sure, a linebacker, great.
All right, I think Shaquille Griffin's pretty good at corner.
He's okay.
I think he's pretty good.
He's okay. He's okay. He gets burnt a lot.
KJ Wright definitely looked better last year, but he's been solid over his career.
He's been okay forever. Yeah. So.
And then I'm just talking about their defense. We go to the offense. I think they definitely have weapons on the offense. You know, they have DK Metcalf. Still have.
What if you don't have Russ? What if you don't have? What if
you
have?
Okay, but that's not a fair argument because it's what if the Patriots didn't have Tom Brady the last 20 years?
But I'm saying so replace the Seattle QB situation for the last 10 years or however long, which is Russell Wilson, with the Browns quarterback situation.
Well, y'all just have are shitty at drafting quarterbacks. I don't know.
But that's what I mean. They'd be like
that could be said for most teams
because they're supporting cast. Okay, if good Ryan Fitzpatrick was on the Seahawks, they would not be as good.
Okay, but I don't think that's
Just if they didn't
there's
have Russell
very
Wilson,
few teams that can get to the deep in the playoffs without a good quarterback.
I'm saying if they didn't have Russell Wilson, they would have some 1-15, 2-14 seasons.
Wow.
Like they'd be so bad if they didn't have Russell Wilson. Which I
definitely think DK Metcalf is a really good wide receiver, and I think
he's a good deep wide receiver. Yes,
I think, and he's going to improve. I mean, he's
he'll
going
be
to
better.
So I don't know. I think that team definitely has weapons. Yes, Russell Wilson's a big factor. Russell Wilson is the best quarterback in the league, second best quarterback in the league.
He's the best quarterback in the league. Dog.
We're willing to
100%.
argue. I'm not. We'll argue this another time. But
Okay.
Mahomes and Russell Wilson, they're both really good. So
Yes.
Okay, obviously you get rid of Russell Wilson, it's gonna be a problem. But you get someone in the middle 15.
Well, okay. We'll say this: if they didn't have Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson,
Aaron Rodgers,
or Aaron Rodgers, I guess they'd be trash. Any other of those quarterbacks, they'd be poop. Or a healthy Matthew Stafford, they'd be so bad. They'd be one of the worst teams in the league year after year after year after year.
I don't know if I'm ready to go that far. I don't know.
I unless I'm forgetting someone,
take.
which I probably am. It's a hot take, whatever. I'm probably forgetting somebody, but that's my take.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, we talked. We argued more about the Seahawks than we talked about Jamal Adams, but
Yes.
anyway, is that all our news? Is there anything other?
NFL news. There was also another trade that happened, but it was lower key. Let me look at it real quick. Hold on. It was like a tight end or something that was traded for like a 6th-rounder.
Adam
so give me
Shaheen?
one. Adam Shaheen, yeah.
We don't
Adam
need to talk
Shaheen
about
was
that,
traded
though.
to the Dolphins.
what are we
I
talking
mean,
about?
but we talk about the Bears now have only 7 tight ends on the roster,
wow.
and that's a real number. They have 7 tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. That's all I got to say. That's a little ridiculous, but I like Adam Shaheen. I want the Browns to draft him. I'm glad they didn't, obviously.
All right, let's move on to the big chunk of today's show.
Big Chungus.
The big chungus of today's show. Our 2011 redraft.
All right.
Got a little there for a second.
Oh, sorry. I was picking up my coin.
Oh, yeah. All right. What your coin do you have for me, Thomas?
Okay, so this coin, I was unable to find and by find, I mean in my room laying
5 minutes before the show.
5 minutes before the show, because I forgot. A 2011 coin of any kind, but instead, this actually isn't the coin I wanted to have, because that one's on the floor somewhere. So we're going to use the same nickel as last week, because I dropped the one I wanted to use.
All right. I'm calling it again? Or you call it this time, because I called it last time.
But I'm
yeah, okay, fair enough.
Okay, so call it?
Heads.
Heads. It is heads.
All right. I'm picking first again.
Okay.
I mean, I told you I was going to pick first, probably.
Well, the first pick is also boring. Cause
it is.
I mean, there's a clear right answer, so I just...
All right, let's get it out of the way. Number 1, the Carolina Panthers. Obvious pick, and who they picked originally, Cam Newton. They needed a quarterback. They got to the Super Bowl with Cam Newton. Got dicked by a person we're going to talk about here in a second, probably. And, yeah, I mean, Cam Newton... Let me see. I wrote down. Didn't need to write down much about Cam Newton. 3 Pro Bowls. He obviously dealt with injuries, and the last few years have been rough. He's a first-team All-Pro one time. I think he's one of those guys who had a lot of untapped potential, who was just derailed by coaching and injury. And
we talked a little bit about this last week too. So
it's the same thing. I mean, obviously the dude's what is he? 6'6" or something? 6'5"?
6'5". So yeah, he's a big
gigantic.
Boy.
Can run. Has a decent arm, accuracy's, but the arm is there. And yeah, Cam Newton's the clear-cut best quarterback in this class, and they needed a quarterback. So why would you not take Cam Newton? Even though not who I would rank number 1 on my board, but
yeah, he's not my number 1 prospect either. Prospect. My prospects list. Number 1, whatever the fuck either.
Okay. Well, not much else that really needs to be said about Cam Newton there at 1. Let's go to your number 2.
Okay.
This one might be interesting.
So my number 2 for the Denver Broncos is J.J. Watt, defensive out of Wisconsin. Yes.
I don't know if I like that take.
So I'm assuming you would take Von Miller here.
Yes,
correct?
I would.
Yes. Okay. So the reason that I picked J.J. Watt really is simply because his first years in the league, he was absolutely dominant.
Yes. He is honestly, a statistical monster. You look at his statistics, and he is a freak.
Yes, honestly, I don't think there was a better defensive end playing in the league. His first stretch, a couple of years, that stretch with the Texans. He's just J.J. Watt's so good, man. He
Pro
has
Bowls.
5 Pro Bowls. He is a very he was super developed pass rusher coming into the league, which is nuts because he didn't even play defensive end. Originally, he was a tight end at Central Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
But and everyone always blows that story up like, yeah, I deliver pizzas, and then I was like, man, I can be great, so I'm gonna go be great, and all that stuff or whatever. That's beside the point. J.J. Watt is so good, so dominant. The only thing that's held him back is nobody on the Texans protected him from himself because he had back surgery and then was in full practice like 4 months later. Like, are you guys idiots? Like, tell him no. Tell him to sit the hell down.
And for the prime years of his career, he didn't have a good
Yes.
team around him.
Yes,
You know, so.
that as well. Because that he joined the Texans right as Matt Schaub was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna bad now for no reason, seemingly no reason."
Mm-hmm.
So, J.J. Watt's so good. Future Hall of Famer for sure. Maybe not first ballot just because he's had injury issues.
I think he could end up getting, just because of his statistics,
he could.
Get first ballot.
He definitely could.
And he's a good guy, and lots of people like him.
Yeah, but you never know with the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Like, the way they vote on stuff is so weird. The way that they're like, oh, we need to put a kicker in over Terrell Owens because Terrell Owens was a big meanie bobini.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's
stupid shit
part
like
of the
that.
reason, the argument I have for J.J. Watt is I think most people like him.
Yeah.
So 5 Pro Bowls for J.J. Watt, 5 first-team
yes.
All-Pros, 10.5 sacks average over his career. But if you remove the 3 years that he was injured, didn't really play, 15 sacks per season. So that's gigantic.
Gigantic.
Those are gigantic numbers. 2
Yes.
in his career, 2 20.5 sack seasons. Not just 1, 2.
And another reason why I wouldn't go Von Miller here is mainly because, and I know, hold on, I'm sorry. Use 1 second. Okay. And they had a player named Elvis Dumervil who is listed as defensive end, but he kind of was also that tweener role. Obviously, Von Miller is way better than Elvis Dumervil. But at the same time, I think you pick the dominant defensive end in J.J. Watt, and then you can kind of have Dumervil and J.J. Watt feel at the same time as opposed to kind of having 2 tweeners. But that's just kind of personal preference. So
yeah, if you just look purely at stats, I think J.J. Watt probably wins that. But I think Von Miller, and not to say J.J. Watt's not a leader, because he definitely is, Von Miller was the face of that defense when they were dominating the league.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And I've never felt that way about the Texans defense.
That's more because the Texans defense, like when they were Bulls on Parade era, which is prime Texans, which is like so. And then when they stopped playing, they should have played Rage Against the Machine any opportunity they had because that is so cool and that's such a cool identity. And then they just stopped. Right. Their secondary. I was trying to justify not picking a pass rusher here because I wanted to be a little different, but they had so many good players here. Like they had Jonathan Joseph before he was 35, so he's really fucking good. They had Daniel Manning when he was still playing, so it was just like, oh my gosh. I will say this is kind of more of a personal preference for J.J. Watt than it is for Von Miller, so that definitely adds to it a little bit. You can call that bias, I guess, if you want. But
he was my second-rated pass rusher, so.
Yeah, I mean, but the answer is clear. You're picking between one or the other here. So
yeah. They had enough depth at other defensive positions that they needed to address pass rushing.
Yes,
you probably couldn't go wrong, J.J. Watt or
Von Miller. It's really just
I had J.J. Watt lower until I looked at his statistics and forgot how good he used to be because it's definitely the last few years it's been.
Well, because he's been hurt and the Texans have just been bad.
And you can kind of forget that he was like the best defender in the league.
For a while. For like 4 solid years, there was not a better defensive player in the league. There might have been better corners, but corners don't. Yeah. Pass coverage is more important. Pass rush is more important than coverage. Pro Football Focus. Idiots.
Okay.
Anyways.
Third pick for me. The Buffalo Bills here. When I was looking at their roster, really, they could have used anyone. They originally picked Marcel Darius, who's a defensive tackle. Probably won't be going there. They could really use anyone here. The only position I said maybe that doesn't need to be replaced is free safety, Jarius Byrd. But, give him Von Miller.
Yeah, okay, good. I was like, where are you going here?
He's my top player on the board. You give him Von Miller to the Buffalo Bills.
That's the right answer.
So let's I guess we kind of just talked about Von Miller a little bit and why I like him so much, but I guess I'll. So he didn't have the same gaudy numbers as J.J. Watt, but didn't get injured nearly as much.
Yes. It's not really J.J. Watt's fault.
No, but you have to factor. Again, you said this last time, but you do have to factor that in. You're getting a guy for his full career. All right, so he averaged 12 sacks per season over his career, 8 Pro Bowls. That's more Pro Bowls than J.J. Watt, but that doesn't really matter. That's kind of a fan vote thing. But he got 8 Pro Bowls. He's been a top guy in the league. 8 seasons, and he averaged 15 tackles per loss over his career per season.
Yes.
So statistically, he's up there. Same with J.J. Watt. Again, it was kind of I think it's more menacing to play against Von Miller in his prime than it was J.J. Watt. Something about that defense was so much scarier to me than the Texans' defense ever was. And it's probably because J.J. Watt was the only true superstar on that team.
Yes.
And so, he would get all the focus. All the focus, didn't make as big of an impact. Even though he still got a shit ton of sacks, I wasn't as afraid of him as I was Von Miller if we played against him. But I didn't feel like we were going to lose to the Texans in the same way I felt like we were going to lose to the
That might be because the Texans were just dookie for a little bit.
So that's J.J. Watt's up there for sure, but I'm going to take Von Miller here since you didn't. And let's move on to your 4th pick with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Cincinnati Bengals. So originally here they picked A.J. Green, a wide receiver out of Georgia. I'm changing that to Julio Jones, a wide receiver out of Alabama. I thought about taking a different position here, but if you look at that roster, really their biggest need is definitely wide receiver. Their next best wide receiver was Andrew Hawkins, who's a boss, Cleveland Browns legend Hawk. But with a player like Julio Jones there, and I mean AJ Green's even comparable there too. Yeah, I just like Julio Jones better than AJ Green.
AJ Green was another one that I ranked lower initially. And then I went back and looked at all his seasons and looked at his stats and was like, oh my God, this guy's also great.
Yes.
Another guy you forget how good he was because he's been on the Bengals.
Yeah. This is talking about Julio Jones. This is the draft where the Browns held the 6th pick, and we traded the 6th pick. We traded down to the 24th to draft a defensive tackle who was on the team for like 4 years. So
you wouldn't have done that if you took Geno Atkins the year before, like I said.
That's true. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. But it is what it is. Julio Jones is probably one of the most physically gifted players to ever play professional football. He is an absolute monster athletically. There's hilarious, there's this website called Mock Draftable where it gives you their combine webs where you see how everything goes. If you look at Calvin Johnson's, the entire thing is just filled in. If you look at Julio Jones, the entire thing is just filled in. He ran the combine. I think he ran a 4.4 and his foot was broken or something stupid. Sorry, let me stop fucking with this coin. It's probably loud. But Julio Jones is a ridiculous wide receiver. He's ridiculously polished. The Falcons have been using him as a decoy, which makes no fucking sense. And I think that's a big part of why the Falcons have had the longest Super Bowl hangover of all time. But Julio Jones is so good. It's a position of need. Easy pick.
Can you think back to that draft and remember, because you're more into college guys coming out of college than I ever have been. Can you remember why A.J. Green went over Julio Jones?
I think A.J. Green, I think there were some injury concerns with Julio coming out, mainly because he went to Alabama, and Alabama was kind of notorious for having their players beat up. A.J. Green at Georgia was also really I think it was just kind of more... There were also questions of how good is Julio without Alabama surrounding him? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So stuff
Same
like
thing
that.
That happens to all the Alabama players.
Exactly. Stuff like that where in hindsight you're just draft the fucking good. What is wrong with you? Just over-analyzing. Basically.
Same thing that was happening to Tua.
Oh, yeah.
Where they're, Alabama's so good. How do you know he's good?
It's
well, the dude won. I mean, the dude was good. He played well.
Sense. You're just saying stuff now. What?
Okay, I don't have any problem with Julio Jones there. I did have someone ranked ahead of him, but that team didn't need this guy, so. Okay, so I guess I'll throw out these stats, even though I don't really need to. He's Pro Bowls, 7 of 9 seasons, 2 first-team All-Pros. Seems light for Julio Jones. I feel like he'd be more first-team All-Pro. Biggest mark against him statistically, if you look at the stats, is TDs. But that's always been a thing.
Says the fucking Falcons.
Yeah.
They had Kyle Shanahan as their offensive coordinator. They got stuff done.
Yeah.
And then they had Steve Sarkisian, Dirk Cotter, and it's just Like, they would just have Julio run a streak and, like, well, if he's open, throw it to him. But we're going to have Calvin Ridley and all these other, like, whatever. Just that they're the ones that you need to throw to. Like, what? Julio Jones and Roddy White for Atlanta was lethal. It was a lethal combo. Roddy White's underrated throughout his career, but lethal combo. Anyway, I'm going to stop gushing about Julio Jones because, my gosh, he's so good.
Fair.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he's comparable in all statistic measures, even if you just watch the dude play, to like some of the best all time, Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, those kind of guys who were just freaks physically.
If Antonio Brown wasn't in the league, Julio Jones would have been the best receiver in the league for a decade.
Right.
So,
all right, who am I picking for here?
Arizona.
So, okay, I know who I'm taking already. When I looked at this roster, they didn't need wide receivers because they had Larry. They had forgetting the other guy they had now. It's off the top of my head. They had a decent number 2 option. Didn't really need pass rushers either. So I'm gonna go ahead and take Tyrone Smith here. Yeah, I'm gonna take Tyrone Smith.
Okay. That disappoints me because I wanted to take him later, but I mean, that's a good pick. He is
a guy. He is if you were building an offensive tackle in a lab, that is what he would look like. The arms 100%. Are ridiculous. The dude is built like a truck. He's scary to look at.
He had an 8-pack at 280 pounds.
He's scary to look at. Let me see. I think he kind of got snubbed somewhat, if I remember. Well, he got snubbed. He's only 2 first-team All-Pros in his career, but 7 Pro Bowls. But the biggest thing, like, he has all the physical traits, and he has good technique, and he's a big part of the reason why that Cowboys offensive line has been so good for so long. So
yes,
Tyron Smith there to the Arizona Cardinals.
Yes, Tyron Smith was my number 1 player.
I thought so. Didn't I say that when we were talking on the group chat? I was like, I know who your number 1 player is.
Yes.
Yeah, he's number 3 for me.
Okay. So you done? You good?
Yeah, we got nothing else. Okay. It's hard to talk for me to talk at length about offensive linemen. I'm gonna be honest. It's easier to.
You fucked up my draft a little bit, so I got to do some backpedaling after I get this picked on. So for Atlanta, who I'm picking for, they picked Julio Jones. Obviously, they traded up with Cleveland Browns, which, but
don't take the easy way out. Don't take the easy way out.
I'm taking the super easy way out because it's the right way. AJ Green, wide receiver, University of Georgia, virtually as good of a player as Julio Jones. Different physical profile, a little more of a contested catch winner, even though Julio Jones is that too.
Yeah.
Easy pick. If you look at their roster, they needed a wide receiver. So, yeah. Originally, I had Tyron Smith still available, and I thought about taking Tyron Smith here. But their offensive line was a bunch of overachievers. Like, they had Tyson Clabo, and he was still playing very well. Players like that. And they just didn't need it, to be fair. But I suppose you could also, if I'm saying who you could also pick with them, that would make sense. Let me look at their roster really quick. I should have had it pulled up before.
They didn't need a tight end. They didn't need a quarterback. They probably could have used to upgrade anywhere else, I think.
I just think AJ Green is so good as well. And I think, because if you look at their wide receivers, it's really hard not to add to this room when a player like AJ Green is there, just because you have Roddy White, who's good, but he really can't be a number 1. Same thing with Harry Douglas. Tim Toon. That is a roster begging for an upgrade there. If you look at their defensive backs.
That was a big problem at that time, wasn't it?
Dunta Robinson and Asante Samuel were both still very good at this point. They're kind of both trending a little bit down, but that was still a position of strength for them. You could have gotten, I guess, a corner to have depth, but if you're picking depth with the number 6 pick, I think you need to reevaluate how you draft. Yeah, I think this is an easy pick looking at it because they still had John Abraham in his prime, not his prime, but still when he was very, very good. Corey Peters was still good at this point. I think this is an easy pick. I don't know who else you would really pick here.
Yeah, there's a couple guys I have ranked ahead of AJ Green who I might have considered, but I won't spoil
Okay.
them. I guess I get to pick them, coming up here. And I'm actually not gonna. Well, okay, so I'm 7, right? San Francisco 49ers.
Yes.
Actually, let me talk about AJ Green real quick, I guess.
Talk about AJ Green while you stall for time.
So yeah, 7 Pro Bowls. I think the thing that stuck out to me the most is even with which he hasn't missed that. In my head, he's missed a lot more time than he has.
Mm-hmm.
It was really only like last season.
It's just recency. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just recency.
But over his career, 1,100 yards average. That's kind of ridiculous. Like to average every season over 1,000 yards is that makes you one of the best wide receivers in the league. So
yes.
Okay, so who am I picking for here? The 49ers. All right, they were actually pretty set because they were getting set up to go to the Super Bowl at this point. They picked Alden Smith here, edge rusher. We know that didn't work out because of off the field problems and stuff like that. But again, their team was pretty loaded, so now I gotta look here. They didn't need a quarterback. They had Alex Smith. I think they took is Colin Kaepernick in this draft?
He's in this draft?
Yeah, he didn't make my top 15, but only one quarterback made my top 15. So
okay.
But I don't think they needed a quarterback because Alex Smith, up until he broke his leg in half.
Broke his leg in half.
Solid.
Wow.
Also, good on Alex Smith, cleared to play.
Yeah, you're fucking crazy, man. If I made millions
Even
of
if he
dollars,
doesn't play,
I'd just be like, I'm good. Yeah, if he doesn't play, that's still a great story.
Even if he doesn't play, give him comeback player of the year.
Yeah. Well,
no, I think even if he doesn't play, give him comeback player of the year.
I mean, that'd be cool.
If he literally takes a preseason, I guess there's no preseason. If he steps on a field in pads, give him comeback player of the year.
Sure, fine, great, awesome.
Those pictures are disgusting. What his leg
that E60 is rough,
yeah.
But I mean, that's just good on him, dude.
Okay, back to the 49ers.
Yes.
But Alex Smith is on this team. They don't need a quarterback. Didn't need a running back. They had Frank Gore. Didn't need offensive line help, really, because they had drafted a couple guys the year before. Tight end was solid with Vernon Davis. Obviously, had Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis on the defense. They didn't need a DN. They didn't need a free safety. Do I grab a cornerback here, Thomas? And so I don't know what they might need. They could have used a wide receiver probably, but you took AJ Green. There's no other wide receiver in the class that I want. So
I'll say if I had this pick and everything went according to how I thought it should go, I did take a corner here.
I think I'm taking a corner here, and I'm taking Patrick Peterson.
Yeah, that's the number one. That's the best corner in this draft, 100%.
So staying in division. He obviously got picked by the Cardinals, but he's on the 49ers here. He's going to win a Super Bowl. They didn't win the Super Bowl, but they might have if they had Patrick Peterson. He's that good.
Yeah.
So that'd be an interesting Super Bowl against the Ravens with Patrick Peterson on that team because Joe Flacco, I don't know how he was good that season.
Joe Flacco at one point was quite good.
Isn't that correct? One season, though.
No,
it was like that one playoff run that made people go, oh, he's good.
Yeah, well, because also they criminally abused all right, go throw deep, draw a pass interference flag, gain of 60 yards, and it's like,
you know what he's like? He's like Nick Foles in the way that people think he's now people think, obviously, Joe Flacco, and the same with Nick Foles now. The shine has been rubbed off a little bit because now we're kind of realizing they had one really good playoff stretch.
Yeah.
And then people started wearing the Joe Flacco's elite shirts. And
it's a joke.
My friend Harrison has a Joe Flacco shirt with a picture and it says elite.
Of course he does. Joe Flacco was fine throughout his career, and he had the really, really good playoff run that was bolstered by drawing pass interference penalties.
And
he was
super fantastic team around him.
Yes, Joe Flacco was not bad by any stretch. Hilariously, when John Elway signed with the Broncos a year ago, I said he's just entering his prime. And John Elway, you're a fucking terrible GM. You lucked into Peyton Manning.
Drew
Otherwise,
Lock's
you're terrible.
Probably going to be pretty good, too.
What's up?
Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock's probably going to be pretty good.
You lucked into Drew Lock because he fell to the second round. Lucky. Horseman is lucky.
All right, so anyway, I took Patrick Peterson here for the 49ers. He is one of the best corners in the league. Obviously, he had problems. He got suspended last year?
Yeah, for PEDs.
For the PEDs,
but it was probably,
which kind of a blemish, which sucks.
I wish the NFL would specify what it was.
Yeah, because it just looks like now the dude took steroids.
Yeah, but there are a lot of banned stuff. Like he could have taken a pre-workout that had one isotope in it that really doesn't do much.
Did he make that argument ever? I know a lot of guys come out. I think he just kind of took it on the chin, which
at least he wasn't like, I don't know if it was Robert Mathis or Dwight Freeney that was like, I took dick pills. Sorry, I guess I did.
Or John Jones.
Yeah.
John Jones also took dick pills, apparently. Okay, well, that's going to be my pick for the 49ers. Okay. Patrick Peterson adds to that secondary. Probably with the team still at this point, probably has 2 Super Bowls, and I don't know if they would have beat the Chiefs if they had Patrick Peterson now.
Yeah.
I don't know if that changes it much. But he'd have gone to 2 Super Bowls.
Yes.
Okay, so now you are picking for the Titans.
Tennessee Titans. Originally here they picked Jake Locker, which the rest of this quarterback class in the first round was kind of just like an LOL. I remember before the draft, people were saying like, "Oh, Cam Newton or Blaine Gabbert," and it's like, okay, like,
I think everyone knew Cam Newton was the pick here.
Yeah, but Jake Locker, I think he kind of was already kind of 1 foot out the door with football when he got drafted. He was already kind of beat up coming into Washington. He was an interesting prospect, and he just got hurt, and he was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. So he didn't. So I have been taking another quarterback here, and I have been taking Colin Kaepernick out of Nevada. So,
wow. I was going to ask you at the top when I took Cam Newton if you had any other quarterbacks making your top 15, and I didn't.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you didn't, because it's a factor of surprise.
So Colin Kaepernick.
But Colin
so
Kaepernick,
you're taking Colin Kaepernick over Andy Dalton and Tyrod Taylor.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Easily. Both of those are semi-game managers, and Colin Kaepernick can win you games. Now, people will be like, oh, well, Colin Kaepernick was pretty bad his last couple of years.
That's what I was thinking. I was like,
he was pretty bad his last couple of years. The Niners were pretty bad the last couple of years as well. And I think a lot of that has to do more with the Niners having an internal collapse, Jim Harbaugh getting fired for calling the owner basically a pussy, which is hilarious. What are you doing? Why are you calling the owner of the team? Like, what are you doing? But he also was very, very good for the Niners. People are like, yeah, well, they figured him out. That's not how that works. If someone says, like, well, they figured him out, that's not how that works.
They didn't figure him out, obviously, because Lamar Jackson's a thing.
Exactly.
It's the same offense.
It just doesn't make any sense for people to say. If someone says that, then they have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, no.
Colin Kaepernick was very, very good at one point. Looking at the Titans roster, they needed a quarterback. And this was the best one available. I think the need was so strong that they definitely take him over certain people. I think this is the pick all day. I think it's an easy pick. Obviously, you look at hindsight and how long
was he going to be in the
blah,
league?
Blah, 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 blah. But, like, I think you take those really, really good years and you ride with them, and maybe they last a little longer if they're in Tennessee instead of San Francisco. So
now I got this theory, and now I'm trying to think in my head, would his whole movement have gone over worse or better
in Nashville, buddy?
In Tennessee.
In Nashville?
that's
it probably would have gone not as good. From Nashville, Tennessee to San Francisco, California.
Yeah.
It probably would have been a little good.
So I don't know. But I wouldn't have taken a quarterback probably out of any of at least 15 picks here other than Cam Newton.
I just think the need was so strong that you had to almost.
I can see that.
If you look at the rest of their roster, right? Titans roster, as I pulled it. I need to start pulling it up right before I pick. I don't know why I'm wasting time on this. I mean, they did have Matt Hasselbeck, who was at the very end of his career. Mm-hmm. Like the very, very, very end. Like, I think this was literally his last year, if I'm not mistaken. And he also was pretty bad his last couple of years because he's old. Mm-hmm. I mean, what do you want?
He's bald.
He's bald, you know? And a guy named Rusty Smith, so who I'm not familiar with at all. If you look at the rest of their team, they honestly have pretty decent players across the board. This is not a very good team.
That's how I had it is the only positions that I wouldn't, for the most part, I probably wouldn't have drafted a cornerback, and I probably wouldn't.
Corner?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I probably wouldn't have drafted a free safety.
Yes, because Michael Griffin was a beast baller at this point,
yes.
And they had Jason McCourty, Alteran Vernon, good surprise for them. Cody Sensabaugh was a good surprise for them. Yeah. But just, like that quarterback room is disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because I have hindsight and I can go, well, it doesn't matter if they lose. They can pick a quarterback next year.
Exactly.
Where I just want to take the player who I think is the best player, but I guess it does make more sense at that time. I I don't think Colin Kaepernick would have made them win more games. Maybe more games, but they wouldn't have been like playoff.
No,
team.
but he would have won more games than Rusty Smith.
No, that's fair.
So,
but I go, okay, do you just say fuck that season and let's take a quarterback next year?
But you don't know that, is all I'm saying. And I mean, and if you're the NFL team, you got to think about it like you're running the team, like this is your job that you can get fired from.
You're fair in taking a quarterback here.
Okay. And I mean, that's really the only other quarterback I would take in this top 15, obviously.
I forgot Colin Kaepernick was in this class, which I feel shitty about. He would have been. Obviously, I had Tyrod Taylor and Andy Dalton in my top 20, I think. Mm-hmm. But neither of them made the top 15. But Colin Kaepernick might have made the top 15.
I think he's the only one that can, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So.
I think Andy Dalton has an argument.
I remember you told me Andy Dalton was better than Aaron Rodgers, and I almost smacked you through the phone.
Did I tell you Andy?
Yes, you did. And then I tried to use stats, which I never use. I was like, look, like it's so obvious. And we're like, you didn't put passes of over 20 yards, so obviously. And I was like, oh, fucking God. So, all right.
Andy Dalton was really good for a period of time.
He was fine. He was really good as
his Red Rocket years were pretty.
He was fine.
He was getting them to the playoffs.
And then losing to the Texans, Texans like 2 years.
But he got into the playoffs. I think he
was fine. He's I think right now he's the best backup in the league. He's definitely He's definitely, people will say, Jameis Winston. So he's fine. He's not a bad player. He's good enough to start, and he won't kill you, which is good. I don't think he's going to propel you to win many games. He has his moments. He's not a bad player. I don't hate Andy Dalton. So.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. I mean, yeah, quarterback makes sense. I'd take Colin Kaepernick over Andy Dalton.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Now my pick here for the Dallas Cowboys, who originally picked Tyron Smith. Is that a need at O-tackle? Yes. Is there another O-tackle I would take in this class? Probably not.
Okay.
So, they didn't need a quarterback. They didn't need a running back. They didn't need wide receiver. They didn't need tight end. And they were fine on defensive tackle. So, let me look. I'm going to get a defensive player for sure.
Okay. There's some good ones. It's a very good defensive draft. It seems like most of these drafts are just like, I mean, we've done two.
It's because I think there's so many players on the defense.
That's true.
There's so many different positions.
That's true.
Okay. I'm going to take Richard Sherman.
Okay.
And I think that would have been an interesting fit, too. Mm-hmm. Just with the culture in Dallas.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I can't really disagree with that. I was thinking for a second because they still had Brandon Used Car, who was not Used Car at that point, and they had Orlando Scandrick, who is still playing well as well.
Richard Sherman's an upgrade over you.
Richard Sherman's better than both. So yeah, obviously. I'm trying to think of who I would take.
The other argument would be, I think the only other player you could argue taking this high is another pass rusher.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about too.
But I think I'd take Richard Sherman.
Can you lean a little closer in your mic?
I think I would take Richard Sherman.
Richard Sherman, yeah. It just wasn't picking you up for some parts of your senses. Yeah, that's a good pick. I'm just making sure. Yeah. I'm trying to think of who I would pick there. Because originally I had Tyron Smith falling back to the Cowboys just because of team need. Mm-hmm. But I think I would take Richard Sherman there too. So for context, I had Richard Sherman going to the Niners because I had Patrick Peterson going to the Eagles as well.
Oh, so you were going to go like chalk this whole draft.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so Richard Sherman, 5 Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pros, averages about 4 interceptions per year. Obviously, he was the leader of that Seahawks Super Bowl defense. Like, he was the face.
He was a big part of because he.
I would say he was the leader. I would say he was the face of that.
It was him, Earl, and Cam Chancellor. I mean, in my opinion, it was Earl and Cam Chancellor, but I think that's bias. Like, I'll fully admit that I'm just biased.
I think Richard Sherman was. I was hearing a lot more conversation about Richard Sherman back then as being like the best cornerback ever.
I think cornerbacks are a little more high. Oh, Jesus. I think cornerbacks are a little more high profile of players and safeties in general. And he just has a much bigger personality than them as well. I don't think Cam Chancellor ever talked.
No, he didn't.
Richard Sherman, when he was in Seattle and they were in the Legion of Boom defense, was probably legit the best corner, if not number 2 in the league.
He was really good. And
Yeah.
I think he's still not terrible. Oh, don't give me
He's
that face.
okay.
He is still probably a top
okay.
10 corner.
Top maybe. He's okay. He's good when he has safety help and he's in a zone and he's not playing against receiver.
He's not Darrelle Revis, but
he's not Darrelle Revis. Well, Darrelle Revis had some bad years. I mean, you get old, it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting towards the end of his career here. I think he's held up pretty well. He was still the best corner on that 49ers.
That's not that hard to say, though. I mean, the other best corner was Akilah Witherspoon.
But he was the best corner on that. He was
the
best player.
I mean, he's
secondary.
still a starting caliber player. He's still a good player. I kind of talk shit about to one of my friends who's a Niners fan because he got burnt by Sammy Watkins. But I mean, Sammy Watkins is the lead athlete for the position.
He got burnt by Stephon Diggs too. That one
Stephon
infamous.
Diggs. So what's the constant here is route runners who are good burn Richard Sherman, and they do now.
But there's
and
not a ton of those in the league.
It doesn't matter now because now it doesn't matter at all. So yeah, Richard Sherman's really good. Make sure you shake his hand twice because if you shake it, apparently it's not good enough. And then when you're like, wait, but he shook your hand, he's like, stop making a big deal about it. All
right, salty Browns fan. All right,
stupidest thing ever.
He went. He appeared in 3 Super Bowls, 2 with the Seahawks.
Super good player.
With the 49ers.
Mm-hmm. He has one of the best
corners in the last decade.
Yes, he has one of the best YouTube videos ever, where he goes around at like the streets of like New Orleans asking people what they think of Richard Sherman, and one dude is like, "He's just a thug, man," and he's like, "I'm Richard Sherman." He's like, "I'm sorry." Hilarious. Yeah, all right, Richard Sherman's good. It's a good pick there.
We are now caught up with my board, where every player on my board has now, or at least up to this pick, has been taken.
There's not really been any
except Colin Kaepernick.
Picks.
I think Colin Kaepernick was the biggest surprise for me.
Okay, there really hasn't been any surprises for me. Everyone that's been to this point has been picked just in a different order. So I'm still on schedule.
Me too. Okay, so now we're going on to your pick here. You're picking for the Jacksonville Jaguars at 10.
Yes.
They took Blaine Gabbert.
They put Blaine Gabbert here, yes.
Are you going to go quarterback?
No. At this point, there's not anybody worth taking a quarterback. They have Chad Henne, who's okay. He's honestly better than any quarterback that's in this draft still. That's not true. There's been better than any quarterback in terms of value. Like, for me to draft Andy Dalton or Tyler Taylor here, that's like, come on. Like, no. They're not doing that. Not with who's there.
But you still can't say that.
I'm saying what I should have said is you'd rather have Chad Henne and who I'm going to pick than
fair enough.
Tyler Taylor or Andy Dalton. So here I'm taking Ryan Kerrigan, then out of Purdue. One of the most underrated players in the NFL. Still super good. Trapped on the Redskins. Trapped on some awful Redskins teams. He can play rush LB or defensive end. He's super good. There's really not much to say about him just because he was solid around.
4 Pro Bowls.
4 Pro Bowls.
Didn't miss a game until last year, and he missed 4 games.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Of course, held back by the Redskins. Held back by the organization and the team and the talent around him. Still, even with that, 10 sacks a season average. And
go
ahead.
Sorry, there was one year, an 8-game stretch, the Redskins, let me enunciate. There was one year for an 8-game stretch, the Redskins dropped Ryan Kerrigan into coverage, I think like 60% of your snaps. And it was, how are you a professional? Like, how do I'm off and talking to an iPhone hooked up to like 6 different wires because I'm poor and don't want to buy a mic. But literally, like, what are you doing? Like, sorry. Just Ryan Kerrigan's been held back by the Redskins for
He's super good, super underrated. 3rd among active players right now in forced fumbles. I think he's a disruptor, and he's a guy who would have excelled a lot more and been in the conversation a lot more on any other team. Good pick.
He's a guy who I hope, like, I don't know when his contract expires for the Reds. Probably not for a while, but like if he has like 3 years left of his career, goes to another team to be a rotational pass rusher, and is just awesome because he's awesome, and then retires. So.
Though now I'm thinking about it, would it have been any better on the? Well, I guess in the I would say would have been any better on the Jaguars. They were pretty trash up until like one season where their defense was dominant.
I think they've had better defensive coaches. Even the coach they just had before Marone, that was not very good. Whatever his name was, they still had a pretty good pass rush at that point. So yeah, underappreciated. That's my pick.
Okay, no, I agree. That's a solid pick. He was a guy I was like, he's super underrated. I need to talk him up. Okay, picking for the Texans here. They didn't need running back. They didn't need left tackle. They didn't need a center. They didn't need inside linebacker. They had Brian Cushing. And they could have used a corner, but I don't know. And there might have been bigger needs on that team than corner. But
I'm ready for this pick. I'm ready because if you say there's a right answer here.
I'm going to take Cameron Jordan.
Yeah, good job. It's the right answer.
Cameron Jordan is a guy I don't like because he plays for the Saints. Now, if I look objectively, Cameron Jordan is a solid pass rusher and a disruptor in the run game. 5 Pro Bowls, 1 first-team All-Pro, probably snubbed there. 9.5 sacks per season, 12.5 tackles for loss per season. Has played every game. Full 16 games every season of his career. So that's something you're looking for. Not in the same caliber as Von Miller or J.J. Watt.
No, but
next tier
like
down.
a tier below, yeah.
Next tier down. Still dominant today. Still one of the best players, if not the best player on that Saints defense right now. I think Cameron Jordan's an obvious pick. They took a pass rusher anyway with J.J. Watt, so you're not going to get J.J. Watt. You're not about to not get the same production, so you take Cameron Jordan.
What a pass rush class! Like, gosh.
Yeah, I know. This was a good pass rush class. I think there's other people in this class too who also I think were.
Yeah, that we haven't said.
Okay, so now you're picking for.
All right, the Minnesota Vikings.
Skull.
So I was excited to make this pick because I think this is like perfect fit, and I'm really like very excited I get to make this pick because I'm
gonna judge the shit out of this pick.
I want to know your opinion on this because I'm whatever. It's not going to be Christian Ponder.
Really, I would have taken Christian Ponder here. He obviously led that team to the playoffs one time. But Adrian Peterson had to rush for 2,500 yards.
In hindsight, yeah. And hindsight being hindsight, he's not y'all's quarterback of the future. Why be stuck to it?
Never. Right. Christian Ponder made me question whether I actually liked football or not.
But which is weird because there'd be games where Christian Ponder was like, okay, Christian Ponder, and then it'd be like, what are you doing?
He's he put me on the same kind of roller coaster ride that Kirk Cousins does now, except like the highs are much higher and the lows are not nearly as low.
Yeah, for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins had a lot higher highs, not as low of lows. But Christian Ponder made me feel bad and almost made me not want to be a Vikings fan because we stuck with him for way too long.
Yes, but you also had some questionable head coaches at that point. Was this in 2012? Y'all's head coach was that?
That was what's his name? The guy for the Bucks, Leslie Frazier.
Leslie Frazier. So let's look at the Vikings roster. Let's take a trip down memory lane. As soon as I find where it is in the Wikipedia article. Oh my God, Thomas.
There's a thing called Pro Football Reference.
But it doesn't the way Wikipedia sorts is much nicer. I just have to. Okay, here we go. I found it. No, I didn't. What the? Sorry. Golly, so professional.
We didn't need a running back.
You absolutely did not need a running back because you had an alien playing running back. Okay, here we go. So your quarterbacks outside of Christian Ponder were Joe Webb, who is not really a quarterback, and some dude named McLeod Bethel Thompson. Do you call him at all?
McLeod Bethel Thompson.
McLeod, okay. So my logic for not taking a quarterback here, though you clearly need one, because I know I took a quarterback for the Titans. You'll be able to get Andy Dalton or Tyrod Taylor later in this draft, for sure. Or, I mean, you will figure something out. There's not a player here that's draftable.
Okay.
At this position.
Okay.
Running back, obviously, you have Adrian Peterson. You have the great White Rhino and Toby Gerhart, who got more Heisman votes than Ndamukong Suh. That's stupid.
Let's go. I used to love Toby Gerhart.
He was all right.
Put him in Madden, just run up the middle. Hell yeah.
When Madden, you could actually truck people in Madden.
Hell yeah.
Tight ends, you have Kyle Rudolph at this point. I mean, you think you drafted him in this draft, like, don't you? Or maybe it was that year before or year after?
We drafted him in this draft.
Yeah, so, I mean, you don't have Kyle Rudolph at this point. But you'll get him later.
We have Asante Shenko still, right?
On this, it said... Oh, well, I'm actually on 2012, which is the year
I think we still had Asante Shenko, who was
okay, well, this says John Carlson and Rhett Ellison.
Yes, neither of those guys did anything. Rhett Ellison played with us for a long time, though. He was in the XFL.
Really?
Yeah.
Offensive lineman, you're actually pretty decent at this point. The
They
following
were all
year,
getting old, though.
Yeah. Phil Loholt was really good.
John
Dwayne
Sullivan.
played. John Sullivan. Brandon Fusco was all right for a while. Joe Berger was all right for a while. The next year, you would draft Matt Khalil. He was really good his first couple of years. Then he just
First
forgot.
year. 1 year.
Was it 1 year? Okay.
It was 1
Well, then
year.
he got sick.
Yeah.
Then he got sick, and they just forgot how to play, I guess. You had Jared Allen at this point. You had Everson Griffin on the team at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You had Brian Robeson still, who was still contributing, even though he was a little older.
He's contributed until about last year.
Yeah. Linebackers. I mean, you didn't have the Eric Kendricks and, Anthony Barr. Yeah. But you had Chad Greenway, who was still contributing.
I have a Chad Greenway jersey.
Yes, you do. DBs. You gotta get in Mistral Raymond. I always thought his name was Mistrial. I always found that funny.
I always thought it was Minstrel.
Mistral.
Minstrel.
You had Antoine Winfield Sr. Was he playing safety at this point, or was he still at corner?
I think he was still at corner.
God, that's crazy. You had Harrison Smith at this point. Or no, you didn't. You would have drafted him in 2012 year. You had does Marcus Sherrill still return kicks for y'all? Or did he get cut finally?
I think he finally got cut.
Okay.
I think Chad Beebe returns kicks for us now.
Yeah, CBs. You could have drafted a CB here too, but I didn't draft a CB. Who I drafted was, hold up to make sure I'm reading it correctly. Yes, wide receiver Doug Baldwin out of Stanford. Yeah.
I hate that pick.
Why do you hate that pick?
We had Percy Harvin. We still had Sidney Rice at this point.
This is hindsight. Percy Harvin did nothing for the Vikings in hindsight. You did not have Sidney Rice.
We didn't? 2011?
Nope. Mm-mm. Yeah, it was his last year with the team if you had him. Your wide receiver this room, I skipped that position on purpose, was Greg Childs. Percy Harvin. Devin. Oh, is this your guy? Aroma Shudu?
No.
No? Okay. Stephen Burton, Michael Jenkins, Jerome Simpson, and then, that's it.
No, I'm not very high on Doug Baldwin. So.
I love Doug Baldwin. This is why. His preference, because I love Doug Baldwin. I love Doug Baldwin so much. So yeah, I knew this would be the reaction. So I'm excited.
I think there was a lot better players that I would have rather you take.
Who'd you have picked here? Who'd you have picked?
I don't want to spoil it. I need to steal him later. I would have taken Chris Harris Jr. over him.
Chris Harris Jr. You could argue to take Chris Harris Jr. You could 100% argue Chris Harris Jr. I wouldn't be mad at you to take Chris Jr.
We didn't need edge rushers.
You did not. I don't think you needed a cornerback. And now I know getting Baldwin here probably means you don't draft Diggs.
And it probably means
at that point,
who's our quarterback until Teddy Bridgewater comes.
I mean, you probably get Andy Dalton. Tyrod Taylor went in like the 5th round.
He wouldn't now, though, in this hypothetical situation.
No, but you could probably get him later. I mean, the only other team that really needs a draft is the Jaguars. So whatever. I mean, you're getting either Dalton or Tyrod Taylor, who are comparable to Christian Ponder. So it's a net whatever. You know what I mean?
I would not say Andy Dalton or Tyrod Taylor is comparable to Christian Ponder.
Like, are you saying that Christian Ponder is worse? Or?
Christian Ponder is one of the worst quarterbacks I've had to watch play and be a starter for like 3 years.
There you go. Even better. So it's fine.
Doug Baldwin, here's my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he was very solid for a long time, obviously fallen off and retired, right?
I don't think falling off is accurate.
Towards the end?
I don't think he fell off. I think he was getting hurt a lot more. I don't think he fell off is accurate.
Not my kind of wide receiver.
How? He's basically the same receiver as Stephon Diggs.
Well, you've
taller.
heard me argue against Stephon Diggs.
But you liked Stephon Diggs when he was on your team. So
you heard me even when we would used to discuss Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. I used to think Thielen. I still think Thielen. Age is a problem now. Obviously, down the road, Thielen's going to go like this, and Stephon Diggs is going to go like this. But that's because of the age. But Thielen.
No, it's because Stephon Diggs has a better skill set.
I like the skill set of Thielen more. I like that kind of.
Do you like having number 2 receivers as your number 1?
Thielen is not a number 2 receiver.
Yes, he is. He's not going to. Whatever. His skill set is not a number 1 wide receiver. he cannot be an X receiver, or he can't be an X receiver. He can't. He doesn't have the skill set.
I think he can, and he's gonna be this year. So we'll see how it works out.
We'll see.
But I think it's gonna work.
I think y'all gonna have Justin Jefferson even in the slot. I think y'all gonna jump in.
I think Justin Jefferson's probably gonna be in the slot, especially early on. Man, now that'll probably change as the season goes on, and Justin Jefferson kind of go anywhere. But okay, this isn't a Vikings talk. All right, Doug Baldwin. I probably would have. The only argument you have going for you here is like the best guys left are pass rushers, and we didn't really need one.
Mm-hmm. There's also some O linemen that are pretty good.
That was my other thing I was gonna say is that with hindsight and looking where we are now, if we would have got
this is a big gap though for now. You know what I mean?
Lots of these guys still play.
But like you got to think about the years that you had as well, where the players that you had on your line were still okay for a good stretch, basically all of Christian Ponder's stretch. So you would rather replace one of those guys and have a modicum of improvement rather than add Doug Baldwin to your wide receiver room at this point?
Do I think Doug Baldwin being added to the team makes us... We got to the playoffs once in the Christian Ponder era. Do I think adding Doug Baldwin to that team gets us any farther than that first round?
I think adding Doug Baldwin and then bigging a quarterback later, either Dalton or Tyrod Taylor. Or Tyrod.
I didn't have Doug Baldwin in my top 15.
I'm so confident in this pick because I was like, who's the Vikings pick? I was like, they could pick Turner. And I'm like, who's undrafted in this class? And it's Doug Baldwin. Bang. Easy pick.
I probably would have taken Chris Harris.
You could take Chris Harris. I also Chris Harris pick if you're going to do that.
And I maybe could have argued for Cameron Hayward.
I don't think you could. With who y'all have at that
time, I think that's, again, just kind of a...
Because Jared Allen's going to retire, or we're going to trade him, I think, the season after this.
Okay.
So... And then we don't get, Daniel Hunter until, like, 3 years ago. So...
Still.
I don't know. Okay. I mean, we were a running team, and I don't know if adding a wide receiver was the way to go, but I probably would have shored up the defense.
So you're picking depth in the first round of the NFL?
No, I don't think it would be depth. I think Jared Allen was towards the end of his career at that point.
He would have been depth at that point. Because Jared Allen
or Chris Harris wouldn't have been depth.
Like I said, I agree with the first pick. I'll pick Chris Harris.
So,
okay.
Doug Baldwin was not on my radar.
I love Doug Baldwin.
Okay, so where am I at now? 13 for the Detroit Lions. They had Matt Stafford. They don't need to get a quarterback. They had Calvin Johnson. They had Nate Burleson. Don't need a wide receiver. They took Nick Fairley here. But they already had Ndamukong Suh. So I don't know if that wasn't the right pick, obviously.
Yeah.
And they didn't really need edge rushers. But I'm going to take Chris Harris Jr.
It's fine.
The best player available. I'm going to take Chris Harris Jr. here for the Detroit Lions. Chris Harris Jr., 4-time Pro Bowl. Also kind of slept on when you look at, achievements. Because it doesn't show up so well on stats.
And he plays a lot of snaps from the slot, which is an undervalued position. Because a lot of people are like, well, if you're in the and you're not a starting corner, you're not as good. No, you're just really good at guarding the slot.
He's one of the best ever at his role.
Yes, he's one of the best man cover corners in the league. Still, he's always been since he's been in the league. So,
I'll take Chris Harris Jr. here because he's best available. Would that have really helped the Lions at that point? Maybe.
You never know. You never know with the Lions, though.
Their pass rush should have been good.
Yeah.
And then having a solid player in your secondary probably could have helped. So that might have got them a few more wins. And the division was run by the Packers at that point.
Yeah, by the Packers? Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. I'm looking ahead. I'm looking ahead of my next pick. Yeah. I'm looking ahead of my next pick. So that's why I was confused.
Okay. You can take your pick for the St. Louis Rams here.
All right. So for the St. Louis Rams, originally I had Chris Harris going here because that's how far he got. Looking at their roster, quarterbacks, of course, they had Sam Bradford from last year, so they weren't going to go quarterback. Not that they really could this draft. Running backs, they still had Steven Jackson.
who was kind of nearing the twilight of his career.
Yeah.
Wide receiver, their wide receiver room was rough. They had Danny Amendola, Brandon Gibson. That's really about it at this point. Offensive lineman was okay. No real need to upgrade any of those positions here, especially with who's here. Defensive linemen are a little rough. They still had Chris Long, Robert Quinn. Pass rush is not really a problem there.
Well, they drafted Robert Quinn here.
Yes, they drafted Robert Quinn there. Yes, excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the 2012 because that's
Pro Football Reference says rookie next to it. So then you know.
Well, I mean, Wikipedia has them in italics. I just corners. They would need corners next year. That's why I drafted Chris Harris. Fudge.
What I wrote here is it's really best player available on this team, same as it was the year before.
Yeah, I mean, I could agree with that.
Because even if you say, well, they had Chris Long, well, then they didn't have a pass rusher on the other side. So.
Well, that's true because they didn't get Robert.
Yeah, they drafted him here, so.
I'll go ahead and I'll draft Robert Quinn here again. Why?
I don't.
Why is that bad?
I think there's other pass rushers here that I would have taken over Robert Quinn for sure.
You could say Cam Hayward.
I could also feel like you could say Jarrell Casey.
Over
Robert Quinn?
I'm not a big Jarrell Casey guy. I'm thinking more of the Robert Quinn on the Cowboys, even though it was only for 1 year, and that's recently. He was very, very good on the Cowboys.
But that was 1 year. I'd say over his career, he's been fairly
You know what? Yeah,
disappointing.
I'm not saying Robert Quinn actually, because he was very miscast in the St. Louis Rams defense, because they wanted him to be more of a rush linebacker, or they wanted him to be a hand of the ground defensive end, which he's not really.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go Cam Hayward here. I'm not going to go Robert Quinn. I'll go Cam Hayward.
I'm fine.
Cam Hayward is super good. I hate that he's on the Steelers because he's super good. He can play on the outside in a 5 technique, or he can play even inside on pass rushing downs. He's an all-around player. He's very underappreciated even by Steelers fans, which is weird because they always seem to like anybody who has success for them.
It seemed like
really cool,
a slight dig there.
Well, because people think Mason Rudolph is good, and it's like
no one thinks Mason Rudolph is good. What the fuck?
Dude, I'm dead serious.
I don't know who you're talking to.
People say Hines Ward is a better receiver than Antonio Brown because they're salty that Antonio Brown's crazy. That's not. Don't even say that's real. I'll smack you up. Don't even say that's real. Hines Ward was not a better receiver. He was a better blocker, and he was mean and a jerk. So Steelers fans like him. He's a tough
yes.
player.
Who would I want on my team more, Hines Ward or Antonio Brown? Yeah, but I don't. I think Hines. Well, is Hines Ward in the Hall of Fame?
He should be. He will be if he's not.
Yeah.
Antonio won't be because they hate douchebag wide. But no, I mean Hines Ward's douchebag too. But whatever.
Okay, so Cam Hayward.
Cam Hayward. He's super good. Like I said, he's a good pass rusher. He can set a hard edge against the
good run stopper too.
Yeah, fantastic run stopper. He can play 3-tech defensive tackle in a pinch. Yeah, I don't know why.
I'm so glad I talked you out of Robert Quinn.
yeah. No, that was the Robert Quinn pick there. Well, I was remember Cowboys when they actually used him in his role, but on the Rams they did not use him. Honestly, for the Rams, he was fine.
He was number 20th for me out of all these players on my big board. Was Robert
Quinn,
so I'm glad you didn't take him.
My last player, if we're going number 20 here, which I didn't rank him that way, but my last one in was Jarrell Casey. So I'm just not a big Jarrell.
I'd like to have that conversation, and because I'd like to have that conversation, why don't I take Jarrell Casey right here? Who's the next highest player? Yeah, for Miami. Who's the next best player on my board, according to my board.
Mm-hmm.
So he is kind of a case of you have to look at the last 5 years because the start of his career was kind of not great.
Yeah.
But last 5 years, 5 consecutive Pro Bowls. He has comparable stats to a guy like Dwight Freeney, who was Dwight Freeney's good. I think he's pretty underrated because he's stuck on the Titans.
Yeah.
And they're only recently starting to turn up, but I think Jarrell Casey is a solid.
Well, Jarrell Casey's on the Broncos now. Sure.
Is he? Is he not still on the Titans?
Let me confirm that, but I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. Hold on. Oh, he's on the Broncos, but he got traded this off.
Oh, okay.
He's on the Broncos now.
But he's been good the last 5 years. What did they get for him? They traded him, or did he get released, or did he just not resign?
I think it was a trade. One moment. I think it wasn't anything. It was like
for sure.
Jarrell Casey's older, so.
Oh yeah, it was for a 7th round pick.
Yeah,
So,
well, I think
literally the
the
bare
Broncos
minimum.
coming away with a win there, because Jarrell Casey has been a Pro Bowl caliber player in the last 5 years.
He's been all right.
And over his career, only 4 games that he's missed, and
Mhm.
I always value that super high. It's always something I write down here when they have like minimal games missed. What is it that you don't like about Jarrell Casey so much?
He just isn't like. He's fine. He's kind of
Streaky's not the word for NFL players. He either wins or he gets washed. So he either makes a big play. He doesn't really, and this is not like him like not wanting to do it. It just he can't. He's either like a super hard impact player, like he'll either get a sack or just get washed out of his gap for the most part. And now, in the last 5 years, he has been a much better player. I fully admit that. With Mike Vrabel as his coach, that probably has something to do with it. Just stuff like that. It's just, I don't know. If you're a defensive lineman and you get washed out of your gap, it's kind of like it's a big no-no for me. But
I think he's a disruptor that I he's not a guy
he's a very
who gets like
good player.
He doesn't get
he's
a ton of
very good
sacks.
player.
But like when you just look at the rest of the class here, I mean, I don't know what he's the next best pass rusher. I don't know what.
I would probably say he's probably the next best pass rusher.
Yeah, like I don't think
class.
Robert Quinn's better than him. Robert Quinn has had one
agree.
great season.
I
And I wouldn't even say it was great. It was a good season.
It was good. Yeah, I agree with you.
And I think Jarrell Casey, especially over the last few years, has been consistently above average, which is enough for him to slot in here at my last pick in this draft at 15. Okay, well, that's who I'm going to take.
Okay. You want to talk about players I got left out?
Yes. So
Okay.
you want to start on some guys?
Yes. So I'm going to say, I'll go ahead and say 2 guys because they play the same position and they're both, I think, 1 and 2 at this position currently in the league. And that's Jason Kelsey. Kelsey or Kelsey?
Kelsey. Yeah.
Kelsey. Jason Kelsey and Rodney Hudson.
Isn't he related to Travis Kelsey?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
So Jason Kelsey out of Cincinnati and Rodney Hudson out of FSU.
Mm-hmm.
Both probably the best centers in the league currently. Rodney Hudson more so is criminally underrated. For some, I literally don't know why. He's been on good teams. He just doesn't get the hype Jason Kelsey does. Maybe because Jason Kelsey has an amazing beard. I don't know. Rodney Hudson is super good. I drafted Cam Hayward. Do you have anybody you want to say?
KJ Wright.
KJ Wright. Thing about KJ Wright, he's been all right.
But I think that, when you look
All
here,
right.
that cracks into the top 20. Just being all right. I'd have him, I'd have him over Robert Quinn.
Robert Quinn. See, Robert Quinn, though, like, the thing about him in St. Louis is they tried to do stuff that wasn't with his skill set, and as soon as he got on a team that did do his skill set, it was like, whoa, you're actually pretty good. You can actually rush the passer from that type of position and everything. So, I
think it's a position that's hard to find. Like, you don't find a ton of great coverage linebackers. Like, I think they're few.
Coverage linebacker.
I think he's a pretty solid coverage linebacker.
He's okay. He's all right.
But I think that's hard to find.
I mean, I suppose, but KJ Wright is like he's all right.
I think he's an above average cover linebacker.
Sure, yeah.
That's where I put him.
Okay.
And I think that's hard to find, so he cracks into this list for me. Justin Houston.
Justin Houston. Yeah. It's weird that I didn't find a spot for this.
Yeah. Kind of same thing, that he's not like incredible.
Yeah.
He's just above average.
Yeah.
And then obviously Andy Dalton, Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah. Nate Solder, Anthony Costanzo.
Oh, Nate Solder. I didn't even
more
see him.
so Anthony Costanzo. Solder, because Nate Solder's not been so good for the Giants. But Anthony Costanzo was an above average left tackle for the Minneapolis Colts.
That's what I was saying. Remember when you were like, this is such a good class? It's like, first top 10 picks were really good, and then it kind of everyone's just above average.
Mark Ingram, even though I don't like running backs.
Yeah, I didn't put him in the top 20 because I don't think you could take a running back at this point.
Yeah. Jimmy Smith, who we talked about for the show. Really good corner. The Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this was super top heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of like Hall of Fame guys in the top 10. but I think once you hit about
what's-
10, it starts falling off.
What's your favorite pick of the first 15 that you think is like the best pick? That's a fit that it had to have changed. We'll say that
It had to have changed because I'm like, well, Cam Newton or Von Miller.
Yeah,
well, no,
yeah.
you didn't take Von Miller at. Well, that might be. What'll have the most impact, I guess, is
Just
then what I'm going to look at.
It doesn't have to be the most impact, just whatever you like the most.
I took Patrick Peterson for the 49ers.
Okay.
I think that probably down the line leads to a lot of success, especially at this time. They would have won this. I think they would have won the Super Bowl against the Ravens. They had Patrick Peterson in the secondary.
My favorite pick really is Tyron Smith for the Cardinals.
Thank God you did not say Doug Baldwin for the Vikings.
Dude, I knew that was gonna be your reaction, but Doug Baldwin, good.
Because did you know I'm not big on Doug Baldwin?
No, I didn't know you would be. I'm huge on Doug Baldwin. He's literally the same receiver as Diggs, so I thought you'd be like, oh, okay. I didn't know you didn't like Doug Baldwin.
I just think he's just not prototype for me. Like he's not the kind of receiver.
What receiver do you like? Because if you like Adam Thielen, that's a number 2 wide receiver. You like Kevin Do you know who Kevin Walters is?
No.
Because that's who you like. He was the number 3 receiver for the Texans. Do you know
That's
who?
Fucking... You're gonna say Adam Thielen is equivalent to a number 3 linebacker on the Texans?
He's a possession wide receiver that is athletic. Yeah, Adam Thielen is not going to be a number 1 wide receiver. He cannot. He does not have the skill set. He will not be on the X. He gets beat up by more physical players because that's just how he is. He can make the contested catch if he has his body between the ball and the corner.
His body control and his hands are ridiculous. I think they're...
So body control and hands. Well, that sounds like a possession receiver to me.
But what are you saying? Just because he doesn't run like a 4.4, he's trash?
No, he's not trash. A possession receiver is not bad. Adam Thielen, arguably a top 10 wide receiver in the league. Arguably.
But how could that be a number 2 guy? A guy who's a top 10 receiver in the league?
That's just his skill set. He's a number 2 guy. Roddy White was a number 2 guy, too. Roddy White can't be your number 1. Jarvis Landry can't be your number 1.
Okay, well, Jarvis Landry is in the same conversation as Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen, you just said Adam Thielen. Okay, is Jarvis Landry 11 or something? Like, where do you have Jarvis Landry? He doesn't make the top 20 for me.
Probably like mid-teens.
I'd be hard-pressed. I'd have to think. I'd
have to think about it, too. But...
I like big body receivers who have good body control.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think speed's a plus, but I think Thielen matches perfectly with what we do.
Thielen is a very good red zone target because, like you said, he is very good.
He's a good deep threat, too.
He's all right.
I mean, there was a reason the guy had, what was it, 9 consecutive 100-yard games?
His problem is more so shaking off coverage as opposed to shaking off's not the right word. It's let's compare him to Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is one of the best route runners, right?
Okay. Yes.
And so if you let me think what I'm going to say. Hold on. Because Adam Thielen, the reason why he can't be a number 1, he's not going to consistently beat press coverage. He's not going to consistently separate. He'll probably make catches that he really has no business making just because of how he can use his body, but he's not going to consistently separate from coverage. He's not going to consistently beat coverage. It's going to be more him having to work extra to get the ball than him being like, I'm open. I got open. Look at me. In situations where it's not the red, close to the goal, short yard situations. That's just how it goes. That's. Would you disagree with that?
He's not. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, but I think that's.
It's not so much speed. Like, I'm not talking about speed. It's just what he's good at.
He's not as good of a route runner as.
Mm-hmm.
But I think his. How he high points balls, how he can control his body, and his hands in general. I think that is the biggest thing he had over Stephon Diggs. I think that's something that gets overlooked with Stephon Diggs. That was always my problem. Is if you hit Stephon Diggs on a slant, it was about 25% chance he wasn't catching it.
But like being a possession receiver is not bad. He's an elite possession receiver. Larry Fitzgerald is actually like
Larry Fitzgerald
is Larry Legend, but like
the Hall of Famer.
Yes, but I mean Adam Thielen is very, very good. He's an elite wide receiver. But he's just a possession receiver. Not just a possession receiver. He's a possession receiver. That's his talent. That's what he hangs his hat on.
And that can't be your number one unless you're Larry Fitzgerald, where complete in other areas.
I'm trying to think. I don't know. I get that you're trying to compare Doug Baldwin and Stephon Diggs, but in
They're
my
the
head,
same
those
receiver.
are not clicking.
Doug Baldwin's better.
That's a bold take.
Doug Baldwin's much better than Stephon Diggs.
How tall is Doug Baldwin?
Let's
5'8"?
5'8"? What do you think? What?
I feel like Doug Baldwin's very short.
Not very short. Doug Baldwin is. Oh, he's 5'10". Okay.
That's what I'm saying. It's a tiny dude. That's why I'm just.
That's not tiny. That's pretty
5'10's pretty. It's average if you're me and you.
Pretty average for a wide receiver, to be honest with you.
How tall is Stephon Diggs? 6'1"?
6'1", probably. 6+ probably. 6 flat. 2 inches. That's not whatever.
I'm not a big fan of like short receivers, but that's it's more of the physical traits that he has.
5'10's not short.
5'10's short for a wide receiver.
No, it's
5'10's
not.
short for a player in the NFL.
It's because you like your receiver type is DK Metcalf.
Yes.
Like Beast, Kelvin Benjamin, not Kelvin Benjamin.
Not Kevin Benjamin.
Not Kelvin Benjamin. I meant to say Cordero Patterson. Like not.
I don't
that
like
type of
stiff big
receiver.
guys. I like athletic big guys.
Oh, you like him loose, huh?
I like loose big guys. Guys who have control over their body while they're also big.
But that's your type. Doug Baldwin. Okay, well he's not that big. But yeah, never mind. But that's your type. So my type is the technicians that can get open, that have decent speed, that have good hands, that have a diverse route. That's my type. So this is why we disagree
Fair enough.
on this, because we just have different types entirely. Not one type is not better than the other. That's just the type that we
You
have.
probably need both types.
You can't just have a team full of one or the other
Unless you're the Chiefs.
unless you're the Chiefs. And
Which
that's
none
'cause
of their stuff matters as long as you're fast.
if the fucking Seahawks would fucking actually run a competent offense, they'd be in the same boat where they just need DK Metcalf and what else they have. But they
Tyler
don't. They're
Lockett.
like, let's run 30 times a game.
Okay, well that's our show.
Well, we capped it off with the Adam Thielen debate and everything. So
Yeah.
Doug Baldwin, Beast Baller. By the
Let us know on Twitter. Who would you rather have, Doug Baldwin or Adam Thielen?
In the
Yeah.
prime of their careers, not now. Let's specify, because people
Well,
are going
Doug
to be
Baldwin's
like,
not in the league anymore.
People are going to be like, Doug Baldwin's retired, idiot. What do you mean?
Who would you rather have in the prime of their career, Doug Baldwin or Adam Thielen? Adam
There's a
Thielen
correct
is like
answer.
in his prime right now, I think.
yeah, they're not going to pass too much though. I think, which sucks, because I think Adam Thielen is actually quite good.
And Justin Jefferson probably a good addition.
Justin Jefferson's going to be really good for y'all. I like Justin Jefferson a lot.
Me too. Okay, that's our show. Thanks for tuning in. I'm sweaty again.
Yes, hopefully I'm not as quiet this time. That's on me though, Justin.
I fucked with the levels. Things should work out,
Okay,
I think.
I might have a new audio setup
Mhm.
next week, maybe if the shipping gets here in time. It said there was a backlog. But anyway, let's plug our stuff on
Again.
Twitter. It's Extra Point Media, or is it?
You can see down there.
Oh, link in the description below.
No, it's not in the description. It's actually on the screen.
Oh, that's right, because Justin's a boss at editing. I forgot. Yes.
Follow us on Twitter. All right, now your fingers have to keep going. Start. Nope. Start
Other way?
the other way.
Other way?
Let's start the other
Start
way.
here?
Yeah,
Okay.
start. All right, start going fast. At Extra Point Media. So that's where you follow us. You've covered it now. And
Down,
then
baby.
up here, like, no, not for you. It's not above you. There's nothing above you. Like, comment, and subscribe on the video.
This is the best ending.
I'm just pointing around because I can actually see it now. I made it so it's in OBS.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. See you
See you
next week.
Next week.